Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, we got a show for you tonight. Look, there's been a lot going on. Things are moving fast. Things are getting broke. Things are getting fixed, maybe, right? Uh, you might have missed it, but in the news just a few days ago, last week, in fact, Trump talked about. Here, I'll pull in a guest. We got one more guest coming. She'll be here in a minute. Welcome. We're live, just FYI.
Hello.
Yep.
Oh my
I'm just
gosh.
introducing the
Perfect time to
subject.
say all the slurs I know.
I'm just introducing the subject
Right
just
off
real
the
quick.
bat.
So, again, as I was
Yay.
saying, last week, Trump mentioned
Sorry.
that he was considering running for a third term. He indicated he was not joking, that he was serious, and that he had been told of ways that it could be done. Tonight, we're going to be talking about this. We're going to be talking about what that means for the country, whether or not he can do this, whether or not he should do this, and whether or not this, as well as other statements and other actions, makes Trump a dictator or a want-to-be dictator. And with that, let's get started. Again, we got one more guest coming. When she gets here, I'll pull her in. But we're going to start with Gibbs. Gibbs, let her rip. Give us what you got.
Yeah. So interesting to me, just like the left can't meme, they can't think of original topics. This is the third debate I've done this week. Fourth, if you count watching Piers Morgan on who is a leftist, despite what people want to say about him. About the Trump third term. And I this week have bought some new books right here behind me. We have Trump's The Art of the Deal, Trump the America We Deserve. We already had Trump Time to Get Tough. And the reason I did this is because I wanted to read up and increase my knowledge of Trumpian tactics. And it's pretty clear to me what Trump has done is he's done two things. He's used the Trump third term to divert away from the Pete Hegseth thing, and the left has bought this full line of sinker. And two, he mentions vaguely having some idea about theories, and then, like the idiots that the left is, because they, once again, only know how to put out manufactured content, they played right into Trump's hand. And what Trump has done is I got us, all these panelists on all these shows, to start debating how we can do this, how is the legal theory possible, and then his lawyers are going to come and look at this, and we have established legal theory for him to steal from. So really, the left has become the arbiters of their own destruction, and it's fantastic. And to end my closing, I would like to sing a chorus from one of the best songs of all time. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Trump is marching on. And that's the end of that. It's just wonderful. I'm excited for the third term.
Well, thank you for being here, I suppose. I am looking forward to Trump's lawyers using this panel to craft their legal theory. We'll see if that happens, and we'll see how that goes. Next up, no stranger to my show, Big Papa Buckaroo. What are your thoughts? Who are you, and why are you here? Go ahead.
Big Papa Buckaroo. I think Trump obviously wants to be a dictator. He likes to joke. He likes to say, maybe I'll do this, maybe I won't. And then like 6 months later, we find out, actually, that's been his plan the whole time. That's actually what he's had his whole team working on. We saw it with Project 2025, where everybody was saying, that's a joke. He's not actually going to do that. He doesn't feel that way. And then, look at the list. You can find all of the aspects of Project 2025 he's already implemented. I think this is just another case of, some people being willing to ignore the serious ideas that Trump has because they're so preposterous, so silly, and so anti-American in every way. So as an American, I just have to say, I am fully against what Trump is trying to do with running for a third term because I respect the Constitution. And if you do too, you would be against it.
Okay, thank you.
I do not state of America. Okay.
Wow,
and
whatever you did
is
to
why
your mic.
That is why I'm also against the third term.
Okay, whatever you did just there to your mic did not work, and we couldn't hear almost a word of the last bit. But that's okay. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Next up, New York Shade. Go ahead. Tell us your thoughts.
Hello. New York Shade here. What's up for those who I haven't met yet? Quick summary synopsis. Trump is no dictator. He's a leader delivering on promises. For decades, uniparty presidents like Obama and Biden pledged big. Guantanamo's still open, minimum wage is still at $7.25, and the overwhelming majority of student debt is still ballooning. They didn't execute on any of it. Trump's different. In his first 100 days, he's acting decisively. Democrats call him a dictator because they don't recognize accountability. It's alien to them. But dictatorship means consolidating power. And Trump's first term proves the opposite. He delegated control over COVID and abortion, while Biden centralized it. Trump, the dictator, is a tired propaganda that lost them the election. My advice to the Democrats is simple. Drop the hysteria, offer solutions, and stop crying crocodile tears. Americans want results, not rhetoric.
Okay, thank you for being here. And we'll get to it as we go. Buckaroo, don't worry, the openings, we still got them to go through.
It's an opening. I'm sorry.
We'll get to
I'm
it.
just getting a little excited.
I understand. I appreciate the enthusiasm. Pentuple, speaking of enthusiasm, Go ahead, Pentuple.
So I think it's an interesting question, the term limits thing. I think it could be talked either way. I don't agree that it's a major constitutional question. It's an amendment we passed, the 22nd Amendment, that prevents people from being elected more than twice. I think they would have included it in the core of the Constitution if they actually felt that 2 terms was that limit. I think that you got to kind of remove yourself from the modern time. Like if I'm thinking about Obama, 3rd term, like I'm more likely to be like, oh, I don't want this, but that's more because I don't like Obama. So you got to kind of separate yourself from even thinking about Trump. Like, is 2 terms enough for a good president to be in president? Is there anything like conflict with the constitutional principle of a president serving more than 2 terms? I don't think so. I think that the precedent that George Washington set wasn't necessarily about 2 terms, but about willingly relinquishing power. And having the referendum every 4 years on the president, I think, is sufficient. I think you could make a perfectly fine constitutional argument that term limits shouldn't exist for the president. As long as they're being reelected, that is the will of the people. But I will say I do acknowledge that right now it's not possible without an amendment. So I don't think this is going to happen. I think that part of the reason he's pushing this story is because there was a growing narrative against his supporters, no longer supporting him with this current administration. So I think coming out and saying, oh, maybe I'll run for a 3rd term kind of shows that his supporters are still there with him. Because when his supporters come out and argue for a 3rd term, they obviously are still supporting his administration right now. But the only reason I would even want a 3rd term, personally, is if we continue to see this sort of corrupt level like obstruction. And I know there's some obstruction that's inherent in politics, but when you get to the point of like, the analogy I like to think of it is like we're deciding who's going to go make decisions to put a bunch of levers in a certain way. And these levers control our society and they're very important. So there's a question between challenging the election results and saying like, who are we going to send over to these levers? And then having someone go over and mess with the mechanics of the levers behind the scenes while we have, our person who's elected. So when you're obstructing Trump and not really letting us get to implement the mandate that comes with it, that is what motivates me to desire another term with him. But other than that, I don't necessarily think 2 terms is too short. I'm not like super passionate on the issue, but I think to cook it up as like a constitutional question where you're like anti-constitutional if you fall on either side of it, or like Trump's a dictator based on a 3rd term, which in theory is an elected 3rd term. There's theories that Admiral Gibbs and I have talked about where he could end up with a 3rd term without even getting elected to it. Those would probably be a little bit more concerning if you really don't like Trump. But generally speaking, the question about a 3rd term, I think, is just a interesting constitutional question. Some people think that 4 to 8 years isn't enough. Maybe you think we'd be in a better place if Obama was able to run again and he didn't have to, step aside and he was the best player. So to wrap it up, I don't think it's like a constitutional question. I think it's interesting. I would be favorable leaning towards removing the 22nd Amendment and repealing it, but it's not something that's like, super passionate for the reasons I gave out. And I'll stop rambling a little bit. I tend to do that. But there you go.
Well, we'll get to it as we go. Thank you for being here. Next up, we have Shenandoah. Shenandoah, give us who you are, what you do, and what your thoughts are. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Shenandoah. I stream on Twitch. And I'm just going to start with my opening statement. That's about all I got on me. Living through history, we don't have the luxury of hindsight. We can't always recognize exactly when lines have been crossed until we've already passed them, and it's too late. Is Donald Trump a dictator? I'm not claiming he is right now. Historians will pinpoint that exact moment only in retrospect. But what I do know, beyond any reasonable doubt, is that Donald Trump is an aspiring dictator. When someone openly expresses ambitions towards dictatorship and has the means to achieve it, the threat of dictatorship is not hypothetical, it's imminent, and it must be taken seriously. Trump casually riffs about serving a third term like it's cute, despite the Constitution explicitly forbidding it. He attempted to overturn a democratic election, he defies court orders, purges civil servants, threatens military force against American cities, initiates reckless trade wars against the entire world, and leads a movement loyal not to our Constitution, but only to himself. As someone who deeply loves this republic, let me ask clearly, would anyone who doesn't crave power behave this way? Would anyone who genuinely loves America do these things? Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here, and we will get into it as we go. We have one more guest to introduce. Thank you for being here, Charlie. Tell people who you are, what are your thoughts, and we'll get into it.
Hi, I'm Enemy Charlie. I stream on Twitch, and I was very late. My expertise is in Tolkien, not politics, but I try my best. And then do I just share my... Also,
Yeah, what
I
are your
haven't
thoughts?
slept in like about 24 hours, so I'm very loopy. Apologies in advance for whatever comes. Thoughts? Yeah, it's very dictatory. Wanting a third term, in my opinion. I know we let Teddy Roosevelt do that, but we shouldn't have. I think that we have rules for a reason. Also, he's fucking old.
Okay.
He's old and not very popular. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, well,
And I wouldn't even want a guy that I like. I wouldn't even want a guy that I like to have 3 terms. I don't like the idea of having a forever leader. And you know, yeah,
okay,
I don't like it.
okay.
I'm not about
Is it a forever leader if they're getting elected? I mean, like as long as they're getting elected, right? Isn't it kind of the will of the people in a way? You could argue that. I'm not trying to.
Yeah, but
you
we
know,
don't do that. But we don't do that here.
Well, we haven't for 70 years, but
Yeah, and we shouldn't.
Hold on.
Well,
Thank
so-
you for the raid, Pawn
We stopped
Scum
doing that
Pod.
for a
Really
reason.
appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Anyway, but go ahead, please.
I mean, I actually agree with Pentuple that it's not, it's not inherently going against the Constitution. I think, there was a precedent set with Washington, but it was, it was just kind of it was the tradition. It wasn't actually in law for quite a long time. I don't think there's something inherently wrong with a third term as a concept, but I have an issue with the conversation surrounding Trump seeking a third term, considering there have been so many other times where he hasn't seemed to care for the law. He hasn't seemed to care for Congress. He's willing to, push the limit. And so when he's saying, oh, well, I'm seeking a third term, that's setting off more red flags. Like, well, what else is he trying to push the limit on? How else is he trying to, challenge the American people? And I don't know if I don't know. I don't think a lot of these challenges are reasonable in the way that he's doing them.
So nothing you
And so
said is
that's
evidence
why I
that
see
he's
it
a
as-
dictator, but you claim he's a dictator. Nothing you said has provided any evidence that
I said he
Trump is
wants to be a dictator because, like I said before, I think the fact that he's gone against a lot of different rulings. I think the fact that he surrounds himself with a lot of kind of obvious sycophants. The fact that he has, even hired his son-in-law to work closely with him, something that Mussolini did, something that Hitler did. There are a lot of different
Biden
things.
in the White House all the time.
What's he hired as a part of the?
It'd be terrible if we had
He
a
hired?
scandal of a
He a part of
family
it?
member. It would be
under
terrible
the
if we had
table. He was
hold
probably
on.
the coach
Oh,
guy.
oh,
Let's
yeah,
hope
hold on.
not.
It would be terrible if we had a scandal
I'm asking you a question.
linking a family member to another country doing anything. That'd be terrible. I mean, I can't think of any examples
Well, I
of
guess I'm
that.
just confused as to saying some guy was in a room versus some guy was hired as a part of the governmental process. Are you trying to suggest that Hunter Biden was a huge part of the?
I'm suggesting
government?
that the Biden
I'm
administration
saying this
was
to New York
corrupt.
Shade. Sorry, I'm saying this to New York Shade.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say what I'm suggesting.
But-
I'm suggesting
yeah.
because you actually have a real conservative today, not a member of the pointy hat committee. Let me tell you what I'm suggesting. They over here, the Dems, they put Biden in there, clearly mentally not there. They ran a corrupt government. no surprise, the family was in on it. They were corrupt as shit too. They're all corrupt. We should indict them all. We should investigate. Let's do something. Let's find out what was going on. Now, that's not the topic for today. What is the topic? Is Trump a dictator? Is Zelensky a dictator? I want all the leftists here to answer that. If he's not a dictator, then Trump's not a dictator. If FDR is not a dictator,
Zelensky's literally in war. The reason that Zelensky is keeping his position is because his nation is at war.
Was Abraham Lincoln a dictator?
At war?
Was Abraham Lincoln a dictator? Because he had an election where half the states didn't vote. So if that's a dictator, then Abraham Lincoln was a dictator. And I mean, I know he's a Republican. He freed the slaves. I don't think he's a dictator.
If you want to
say the man who freed the slaves is a dictator,
this nation, and they tried to dip.
Just real quick. Hey, we must have order in this court. We must have order in this court. Okay. Finish your point. Finish your point.
You do need a gavel.
Yeah, I do. Finish your point, Gibbs, and then we're gonna let. Hold on, stop. Finish your point, Gibbs, and then we're gonna let Charlie and Buckaroo respond, and then we'll get back to it.
I was at the end anyway. Yeah, I mean, and really, if Zelensky's not a dictator, Abraham Lincoln's not a dictator, and FDR, who had 4 terms and put some of the most sweeping legislation that arguably has been challenged over and over again throughout our time since it's been put in place, then Trump is definitely not a dictator. And the only reason why they're crying poo-poo is because, like our friend New York Shade said, it's because Trump is effective at getting shit done, while the Dems just sit there and cry the whole time.
I thought we were talking about wannabe dictator, not just like actual dictator in charge, right? If he's seeking full power, not just if he already has full power.
But he's not seeking that.
I want to give the mic to hold on. I want to give the mic to Charlie for a little bit. She was trying to get in here. Go ahead.
All I had was a comment on the Abraham Lincoln thing. Was he not? Was the South not seceding at the time? As you brought up, half the states didn't vote. Were they not trying to become their own country? Like what?
They're like, actually, we don't want to be states.
Yeah, they didn't want to be in the states.
Oh wait, so then you don't
believe that Donald Trump
so you don't recognize them as part of the U.S. then?
Do you really believe that Donald Trump is inheriting an America that is at a level of crisis at the Civil War? Like,
I mean, that's what y'all are acting like. I keep hearing that Mussolini was evoked. I heard Hitler evoked. I mean, if I'd made this into a drinking game, every time a leftist said Mussolini, Nazis, or whatever,
Mussolini and lose your fucking shit. Were you just triggered because I said Mussolini? Is that really all it was? I said Mussolini, and you like lost your top and couldn't keep it in for a little bit. Like
I haven't taken my top off yet. I can, I guess.
His behavior is reminiscent of the behavior of many other dictators.
And
his behavior is similar to these dictators who I think most people have agreed did something wrong. I think his actions
How
are
many families
wrong.
are in politics that like get other family members into politics? Like, can you answer that just in America? Like,
I'm not talking about whether they get their family into politics. I'm talking about whether they hire their family as a part of one of the most powerful political offices.
So you don't like it when Trump does it, but it's fine when everybody else does it. Got it. All right, sorry.
No, that's not what I said. I don't think that I don't like it when they just out of the blue hire their in-laws as a part of one of the most important political offices in the world, really. That's very different from me saying I have an issue with Trump doing it. If Biden hired Hunter Biden to work closely with him, I would also have a fucking issue.
The word you're looking for is double standard. Double standard.
Joe Biden was running cabinet meetings. Joe Biden was running cabinet meetings.
He's not.
Was she elected, by the way? I don't remember.
He's not.
Was she elected, Joe Biden?
I mean, there's already been a precedent. No, you're right. However, I do think there's already been a precedent set in American history, especially of first ladies having a lot of history in politics of participating.
No,
I mean, there's even okay, bro, like read a book. There's even like one first lady who's thought to have basically had like bordering on presidential power because our president was incapable of acting himself. She controlled all of his meetings. Yeah, so like when you're saying, well, Joe Biden, like I don't give a fuck. Maybe present a better.
Was that particularly good time in American history with Woodrow Wilson?
Inconsistency.
Okay.
Again, you're just not arguing against what I've said, which is hiring in-laws to work in the office. You're talking about some dude's wife having a meeting on his behalf versus this dude who was hired.
I mean, that's so much worse than like a heroin.
Let's pull this back.
That's so much
I want to hold on. I want to get us back on track just a little bit so we avoid circling the drain forever, right?
I just
finish your point, but then I do have something to rail
Bro,
us.
if you want to make some fucking rules about the first lady in the office, and go right a fucking head. I didn't argue against that. My argument was different from the argument you started bitching about. What I said is I think there is an issue. Yeah, I do think you should make a face because you're the bitch here, okay? I think when you are, well, look, I'm sorry, I have to call him a bitch if he's gonna make a fake argument.
Okay,
Nobody
but like
said.
again,
Desperate.
land the
Bitch
plane
behavior.
so I can
Get
get
him,
to
Papa,
to the topic. Land the plane.
Okay. Yeah, I just think when you're hiring
the
in-laws to
plane.
work in this
9/11.
the Oval Office, I think that's just obviously, I think it's just obviously corrupt if they don't have the necessary requirements of the
Gotcha.
position.
My question to Shenandoah, and I'll start with you. You made comment in your opening statement about how he is defying the rule of law. Can you give us some examples of that you think he's doing that? Just maybe so we can crunch on
of
it.
course. Yeah. So first off, the most famous and most obvious example was in 2020 when he tried to overturn the election with a fake electors plot. I think that's probably the absolute biggest piece of evidence that Donald Trump does not care about the law or the Constitution. But beyond that, we could call that ancient history. There are things happening right now that are, just about as bad or worse. For example, in Donald Trump's most recent term, the one we're in right now, he is ignoring judges. Judges which are giving him orders to say not deport a bunch of Venezuelans without due process, or orders that you can't just randomly fire federal workers because of a certain law, and he will entirely ignore those judges, in turn ignoring the rule of law and the basic functioning of the judicial branch. He sidelines Congress, he passes illegal executive orders that could just be passed by law because he has a fucking majority, but he just finds them so much of a nuisance to work with other people. Fuck it, we'll just do executive orders anyway. I mean, I could kind of keep going on. I think a lot of the illegal firings are, for example, an example of not having respect for the law, but, I want to be brief.
Can I ask you something about that?
Yeah, of course, happy. Go ahead.
So, do you think the executive should always be required to enforce every ruling from the judicial branch?
I think generally speaking, yes.
Because when you go through constitutional law, there's part of the separation of powers is that the judicial branch does not have enforcement power. Should we give the judicial branch enforcement power?
I mean, to be honest with you, wouldn't that be nice? But I understand that no, they don't have that right now.
Do you think that was a mistake that we did? Do you think we should have given the judicial branch the enforcement power? Or do you think, because what I would argue is that the president has the right to ignore these rulings, and then Congress has the right to impeach them. This is how our balance of powers works. So the judges, when they do overstep, which judges are capable of overstepping, judges are capable of being wrong, judges are capable of being corrupt, this isn't necessarily like an affront to the constitutional structure. That's actually how we've designed it for these checks and balances. So are you suggesting we should kind of restructure our checks and balances regarding that?
I actually have a counter question, if you don't mind. When Andrew Jackson did the Trail of Tears, despite a court order telling him not to do that, and he essentially said to the court, hey, fuck you, I have an army and you don't. Hey, suck my balls. Do you really think that was in line with the constitutional order as it was originally envisioned?
It may not have been, but he should have been impeached. Right. This is how the balance of powers
and so
work.
Because he wasn't impeached, was that move fine? Was it not an authoritarian move? I believe that's an authoritarian move because I care about the spirit of the Constitution.
I guess you can argue that, but it's within the separation of powers. This is how it works. This is how the system works. It's important who you elect president. Like, for example, when I disagreed with the preemptive pardons that Biden handed out, that was a consequence of Biden being in the presidency. That's what happens when people are president. That's why it's very serious and important that you put people in that you trust, that you know are capable of being corrupt, but will honor the power that we're giving them. We are granting them power. I mean, from Congress, all of these people who swear in our government, we're all trusting them, right? I mean,
of course.
The system works. You're arguing we should change the system to grant the judicial branch enforcement power, which is quite a drastic change.
Well, he didn't really argue that. He just said that would be nice.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you.
Right, but he's
suggesting
that is an
argument, though, isn't it?
It would be nice if
he's arguing that Trump should be bound by every single judicial order. He's essentially
right, as
arguing
it has
for
been
the same
for
thing.
basically the
Wait,
entirety
hold on.
of the
Do you think
American
that the executive has? I know they have the power, right? No one can stop
They have the
him,
enforcement power,
but do they have the right to say no to the judicial branch? In other words, what checks can, in your mind, the judicial branch under our Constitution as it exists, enforce on the President of the United States?
Well, I don't think that their rulings are like completely weightless, but this is like we have three branches. We have the powers separated. We have the enforcement powers delegated to the president.
Each has a check on the other, right? So the
right.
judicial
I mean, this
branch
complaint,
has a
like
check
I
on
said,
both the
it kind
Congress.
of boils down to you not liking who has the executive power.
No. Let me explain.
No, this is
okay,
Marbury
hold on,
versus
just real
fucking
quick,
Madison.
because let me explain how this works, right? So Congress has a check on both the executive branch and on the judicial branch, right? They can impeach judges or they can impeach the president. They also are the only branch capable of making laws. They're the legislative branch. They
Well, that's not true.
legislate. Let me finish, right, real quick, right? That's their job. The Trump or the executive, their abilities, right, their checks on power on the Congress, on the legislative branch, are the ability to veto, right? They have the veto power on Congress. They can overrule Congress in certain cases, right? And the check that they have on the judicial branch is they're the ones who nominate the judges, the justices that sit there. They're the ones who appoint them. They have the ability to do that. The judicial branch has two things that they can do. They can stop Congress and say that legislation you made is illegal, right? It is unconstitutional. Go back and change it. And they can do the same to the executive branch. And so this is how this works, right? So when Trump says, I'm not going to listen to you, the judicial branch, that is unconstitutional.
No,
hold on.
It's unconstitutional.
Hold on. Judiciary can also make law, though. Hold on. You can also make law from the judiciary, depending on how they enforce a statute. When they decree something, that also creates new law and can only be revoked by, the legislative branch making a new one. That's why people have an issue with people legislating from the bench, and that's why we have the separation of powers with the executive branch having the ability to enforce and the judiciary not. Because instead, if you have the judiciary with both, you're going to have 9 dictators instead of 1 dictator, allegedly, right? Like, that's kind of the theory there. And now, albeit Trump's not a dictator, this is just screaming crybaby bullshit because, oh no, we don't like the guy in charge, just like they didn't like Musk, even though we're cleaning it up. We just don't. That's why we don't like all this stuff. It's because he's efficient and he gets stuff done, and he's undoing years of corruption on the left, and that's why they're mad.
Yeah, he's making the stock market.
I mean, I'm doing great. I'm sorry that y'all are doing bad, but we knew everything was happening. I voted. I'm getting exactly what I voted for. Have y'all seen beef prices through the roof? Wonderful. Big time.
By the way, Joe Biden's presidency had 4 10% downswings in the S&P 500 throughout the 4 years. So let's not pretend like you guys were shouting and crying about that.
Post-pandemic.
Post-global. This is post-pandemic.
Wait, when the market was surging? Is that what you're talking about?
No, it was fluctuating. Shit was weird. We've just gone through a global pandemic.
The economic pandemic recovery was a massive bull market, and he still had 10% downswings, 4 of them over the 4 years of the recovery. So it's just a non-argument.
Man, I remember you literally last time we talked, you were like, oh, it's not going to go down anymore. Like, how much is it down by today?
I'm actually doing fine.
Can you show me the clip?
I'm still up from election, but I'm in crypto, so. But I want to say, just as a matter of principle, to challenge Wick and you on this, if a judge makes an order that's clearly unconstitutional, would it still be unconstitutional for the president to not follow it?
Well, in that case, then as you said, the congressional branch should impeach that judge. But I think it's
right. But do you think the president should still be required to follow it? It would be unconstitutional for the president to not follow the unconstitutional ruling?
I think the problem is that the alternative is you would have essentially an advisory judicial body, and it would basically no longer be a branch anymore. They would just be saying, hey, Mr. President, can you please do what we think is right? And then, like, that's cool and all, but then why fucking hire judges? Like, why have federal judges who can actually make rulings on law if they're just guys who have opinions? I do that for free. I do that every day.
Aren't most people in politics just guys who have opinions?
It has to be enforceable.
No offense. That is like all of politics. It's just dudes who have opinions,
right?
Saying a bunch of shit, and then everybody else being like, I guess.
Well, do you at least recognize like the level of power you're granting to people that aren't really necessarily going to be held? I'm trying to think of the words, like to account. I guess like the president is someone who's elected. We hold them like we know who they are. We know what they're doing. We're involved in that process. We have how many? What is it, like 677 judges? I mean, we're granting this sort of like faceless body of people quite a bit of power. So like,
Do you think
There
they're
is questions when we're
secret?
talking
Do you
about
think we not know
who
who they
has the
are?
power, the presidency or the judges.
Secret
Hold on.
judges
We
that are
know who
appointed
No, I'm
they
just
by
are.
saying. I'm just saying. Like,
I
do
can
you
name
think
them
that they have
for
the
you.
same level of accountability as like a president or a senator?
They don't
mean,
have the
like-
same amount of power.
Well, I mean, if they're
either.
impeached, don't they actually lose their job?
I
Yeah.
kind of feel like you're asking me the same
Last I
question.
checked, we have like an impeached president who still has a job as a president.
I
So
sort of feel like
I'd
yeah.
say, like, I understand the point that you're making, but the impeachment just doesn't seem to be effective when it
Well,
comes
that's
to.
because you don't have a
Trump.
majority in Congress. So
That's
that
unfortunately because
is-
Republicans are so kowtowed into fucking buying whatever Trump says. Man, I
That's what
fucking
it
miss
is.
Romney.
Yeah, that's
do.
because they're countdown. Maybe it's because they've seen the light. And
I mean, this is what it's literally just. This is
they
what it
agree
feels
with him.
like to lose. This is what it losing feels like. I don't know if you guys,
You guys
have
think
picked up on
that
that yet, but you guys are
politicians-
losing politically, and this is what it feels like. It sucks, but
Well,
like we went
fortunately,
through this.
history continues on.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's true.
It's,
That's true.
it's really
Trump
is sore
will one day
losers.
die, and all these
Probably
things-
soon.
Oh, thank
He's old
God!
as
I can't
fuck.
wait
Yeah,
for
Romney,
Vance
I
to
mean,
be
he's fucking
president.
Let's be careful
Yeah.
with this. I do have
No,
a
I
challenge.
just
did
have
not
to
wish
say.
death.
And we
Well,
all
can
watch
I
There's
this.
no
just?
wishing death.
We're
He's
all-
I understand.
we're all
it's
gonna
a
watch this
poor
now.
diet,
I just-
like it's just
Okay,
I'm
can only assume-
curbing it
I do
before
think
it.
this is an
Sorry,
interesting-
you're fine, right? I'm just reminding
Yeah.
everyone, okay, that's fair to say, but let's remember, okay.
I want him to have a nice, peaceful, like
Okay,
better,
we're
better
good.
roses. Like,
Let's get back to the
Um,
matter at hand.
I think it's.
Go ahead, Buckaroo, and then we'll get. To
I
the
was going to say, I think
discussion.
it's interesting to bring up a president dying, considering that is like one of the cases in which Trump could be given basically a third term. Is well, ish. One of the theories basically pushing the change that presidents can run for vice president and then having him run as vice president instead, and then if Vance died, being appointed.
Well, Vance doesn't have to die. You could just.
Oh, sorry. If Vance steps
He
down,
has to commit
true.
suicide.
When I first heard
JD,
it,
do it
I
for
was
your
like,
country,
he would
JD.
step down. But then you mentioned death, and I was like, well, I guess that's another way. Yeah. So,
Gibbs and I had an
I do think it is
interesting thought about how to
interesting.
do it.
Yeah, we have a different way.
I do
We-
think
we-
this. I do
we came
think
up
this
with
is
a legal
actually.
theory.
I do actually think this is interesting. An interesting topic in itself. I whether or not I take issue with Trump in power.
Well,
I understand. I
I have a
understand
good
the
question here, Wick.
the interesting legal theory behind it.
For me.
like would it
I have a
bother
good
you
question
if there was like a for the right wingers here, would it bother you if like Obama was trying to do this?
That's
Yes, because I hate
like, I
Obama.
try to not think of it as like.
Okay,
whether
so
I like
you
the
do
candidate or
feel
not.
that it is kind of like potentially a little bit unconstitutional and weird.
No,
and
that's not-
no.
No, I'm saying I'm cool.
Ooh.
I would be like cool with it. I try to not think about it that way because like
If the
it's
avenues
easier
are
for me to
legal,
oppose it.
And there's like due process. That's what you want. Is you want this to happen in a legal fashion.
Yeah, the legal
Like,
fashion. Like
Yeah,
I
I
wouldn't
mean, I
like it if
don't think-
Obama did it and did it legally, right? But like I wouldn't be happy about it. But I'd be mad because it's Obama. But I wouldn't be over here like, well, as long as he's doing it all above board legally, I wouldn't be like, here's a dictator. I'd be like, well, this is some bullshit. But and I'd bitch about it. But I'm not gonna be like dictator Obama.
I think that you
otherwise-
would.
Well, to be clear,
To be- I feel like most people would. I
I've
would.
been doing that the last like
long
8 years, or however, not 8 years. That's 8 of the 12 years. Whenever we had, or 12 or 16 years, where we had dim presidents, and they were doing all sorts of shit. They were doing illegal treasonous shit all along the border down here, and I call them treasonous assholes. I never once called them a dictator.
Well, because they were.
I
As long as
will
we're
say
having
that.
elections,
Yes.
I don't
You
think
were
it's a
right.
I think
dictatorship,
Trump's
whether
push
it's
for
Obama
power-
or not.
Yeah, I think Trump. I just personally take issue with Trump and his like.
Hold on, do you not
egregious
think
pushes
there
for
should
power.
be-
I just don't find him to be a respectable leader in any regard. So like all of his pushes to have more power, I also find not respectable because I don't respect the man. I don't respect that he has this position in the first place. That being said, there are cases where I could see total like legal justification in keeping a president in the office for a third term. Like that in itself isn't egregious.
Are we just
I just
Right.
so
I
I
have
feel
a
like
question.
the
I
egregiously of
kind
it
of feel
isn't.
like it's a bit egregious.
just real quick. Just real quick.
Well, I mean, look at Zelensky. The reason he's still in power is because there's like literal war, like on his land. So when you're talking about
Ukraine
people,
is not.
Yeah,
Putin
but
did
we've
nothing
seen-
wrong.
well,
think we should make
I'm not.
comparisons.
I'm not
Putin was
saying.
wrong.
I'm not
Putin
saying
was-
Okay,
we
the
are.
Ukraine stuff we
I'm not
can.
saying we are
Lithuania.
Ukraine.
That's another argument.
My main
That's
point
another
is
debate.
just there are situations in which like there is something tumultuous going on. There is something unprecedented occurring that
A rich
requires
tide
an
fire.
additional term. So like in itself, I don't think that is the problem. I think personally, my problem is with Trump.
Okay.
Like
So what
yes,
if-
that
Well,
is my
let's
problem.
talk
I
about.
think
Hold on,
he
just if
is
I may.
the
Couldn't an
disagreeable
emergency
aspect of it.
Hold
Glad
on,
we
if I
agree.
may, if I may, if I may, if I may.
Yeah, that
right?
like
Hold on,
that's straight
stop,
my
stop,
problem.
stop. I do have a question now, since a few people have made this comment, right? Do we not want term limits for our politicians? Is that what some of you are asking for?
I don't like term limits.
I think
no.
it's different when you're talking about the president or Congress, but I also have a different position. I won't derail us on congressional term limits.
Okay,
but-
so you don't want, or you're fine with getting rid of presidential term limits, but you would want congressional and senatorial term limits.
I think
What's the difference?
Well, I think Congress should be. Well, the difference I think is that there's a lot more stakes with the presidency than in Congress. Like the stakes are very high. Like some governors in some states you can't run back to back, so they like split like terms, right? Like I think Virginia is one of them. Like I don't think that would be a good idea at the presidential level, but I think that could make sense at the state level. I think it also could maybe make sense in Congress. Rather than having congressional term limits, I think we should just ban consecutive terms and have the people's seat actually cycle out with the people that make up that constituency. I think it'd be harder to corrupt the seat if you had a rotating. I mean, because people who are good in politics will stay in. If you deliver on your promises, you'll be able to get back in. You're not going to be able to just be like, oh, vote for me so I can do it next term. I'll do it next term. Just vote for me this time and I'll get it next one.
I hate
But
that.
I think it's.
I
I do
would
think
like
it is.
to- I would
go
like
to
to-
Charlie.
to-
Let's go to Charlie. Go ahead.
I feel that politicians actually do that all the time, where they say, I'm going to do this thing, and then they don't. And because they have
Right.
the backing of many lobbies
Yeah.
and, wealthy donors, it just keeps going and going and going. I mean, we could argue that Trump has, reneged on many of his campaign promises. I mean, the price of groceries, the price of eggs, those were things that he, I suppose we could
Yeah, it
say
seems-
promised.
Eggs are down, by
he
the way.
kept
They're down.
he
Yeah,
kept
where are
all of his
mass
campaign jokes.
deportations.
I don't think this one's still
Yeah.
a good one. Good point. But
Um,
I
well,
think
I mean,
there's an
he-
interesting debate here between the progressives and the conservatives here, because typically it's the conservatives who are kind of attached to like tradition and the way we've done things, and the progressives who are like, let's restructure and figure out what the best way going forward is. So putting all of like modern politics aside, some of the hypotheticals that are coming to mind, like what if we had passed the 22nd Amendment and it said 3 term limits? What if we had 5-year presidential terms instead of 4? Like, what is the best system for us going forward? Do you think that it's 2 term limits, 4 years is like we just got it and that's the optimal way? Because part of me thinks that you guys are kind of turning into like traditionalists on this, where it's like, this is the way we've done it. Like we've always done it this way. But what is the best way for us to actually govern ourselves? I think that the core of the Constitution and our system here is that we have elections and that we get to have a referendum on our president. As long as we have that, I don't think this term limit thing is like, a super passionate issue. I mean, you could fall anywhere on it. It's just, how do you think we best do this?
Oh, go ahead, Shenandoah. You can respond.
Yeah, if I could say something. Actually, I am going to play conservative here. So, it's my point of view that we live in a republic and not a democracy. I'm sure that's like fucking cliched out the ass at this point, but, I think that actually is like a true statement. We live in a society where we have counter-majoritarian institutions baked into our constitution in order to preserve the democratic system itself. So, for example, freedom of speech, right? We don't let people touch freedom of speech just because majority rules. Because we decided, well, if we want a functioning society and we want a functioning democracy, that should be something that's really, really, really hard to touch. I think term limits serve a very similar function. Yes, they might not literally allow the will of the people to come through in every single instance, but they preserve the institution that is the United States of America. They preserve the Republic, they preserve the Constitution from people who would wish to consolidate power in a position that is very, very, very powerful, as we see right now. And I'm very concerned that, Donald Trump is doing exactly fucking that, and a third term would just enable him a little bit more.
So you're arguing that the government shouldn't put forward the will of the people? Is that what I just heard?
No, I said I was giving you a lesson in like
Hold on.
classical liberal Republican
New York Shade.
philosophy.
If the government decided, hold on, if the people, the will of the people was to take away your guns, should the government be able to do that?
Fuck no.
Exactly.
No.
No,
Okay.
exactly.
Well,
and I
Because
agree.
if checks and balances exist for a
Fair-
reason,
fair
the will
enough,
of the
fair
people isn't the
That's
only
the point,
isn't the only
I
though,
love
is
a
argument.
that they
beautiful
literally
gun.
can't.
Go, baby.
That's the thing about guns, is that they literally like can't. Like even if they do everything in the system to do it, like we're going to shoot them. That's
Okay,
like
so
the
like,
problem.
Well,
Hold on
the
with
guns
the-
the military
but I-
has.
Well, just like this is why they won't be able to enforce like
The whole
curfews
point
and
of the
stuff. Like, I mean,
question,
there's a lot
right,
of things protected by the
is
Second
when you
Amendment, but
ask, the whole point of the question is when you ask, well, why are you against enforcing the will of the people? Is to showcase that in certain cases, you are also against enforcing the will of the people. And the will of the people, while we should, again, try to follow it, there are certain instances and cases where we, and rightfully so, in my opinion, override the will of the people, because what the will of the people wants is just unconstitutional, it's harmful, and it threatens our freedom and democracy. Like, I
Yeah,
can't
please.
vote, this panel, we can't all vote to kill and eat Gibbs. We can't do that. We're not allowed,
Try, baby.
right?
I'm kind of sad about that fact.
I know,
I'd be
I know,
tasty, I guarantee it.
but we can't do
Yeah,
it, and there's a
you
good
do eat a lot
reason
of
we
beef.
can't do it. So
I mean, we
just-
technically could.
well,
I have heard
Y'all can
human
vote.
meat is
A lot of
not
trouble.
particularly
Gotta get the
enjoyable,
long
though. I
pork.
must say, a lot of it is not. I wanted to add in though. I actually
Please.
agree with Pentuple on a lot of that. That I do think a lot of people on the left are kind of fucking annoying. They've suddenly argued in like all of. They're like, actually, I think the system's perfect as it is. We shouldn't do anything about it. Actually, let's keep it the same. It's serving us perfectly. It's like, I'm sorry, a couple years ago you were talking about defund the police, and then now you're like, no, wait. I love the limits on how long you can be in office. Like, I love term limits. Bro, I don't give a fuck about term. I don't give that much of a fuck about term limits. Okay,
Let me-
I think Trump is a wannabe dictator, and therefore I care about his term limit, as in I would limit it to 0. Okay, I don't trust the man. I think he's an untrustworthy, like wannabe dictator, narcissistic bitch. Okay, I don't like the man, and I don't think he should be in power. But I don't care about term limits. I think it's fine if we wanted to change the term limits a bit. I really liked the suggestion that he made about having Congress rotate out positions, because I do think that I think that'd be a great way to defend against exactly what he said, defend against I forgot the word, corruption, and I also think it would be a better way to represent the people.
Gibbs
Because
and
you'd
Charlie.
have more people
Yeah.
in those positions in the first place.
Gibbs
Yeah,
and
so
Charlie.
I'm actually going to break from the temple on this one because I'm actually a conservative here. And we were right. We were right the first time when we came out with the Constitution. We didn't need to add the amendment. We should ban term limits. I think it's bad, especially with life expectancy improving. I'd be okay with maybe doing some kind of cognitive test. But think about it. President, say somebody gets elected at 35, right? And they do a fantastic job. Right? What would we what should we do? Should we just stop them after 2 times? What if they do it 2 times and they wait and 10 years goes by and hey, why don't we get this guy that did a fantastic job because the last 8 years have been shit? Why don't we get him the road again? Oh, can't. It's terrible. It's bad. Like the forefathers designed it this way for a reason. They made it 35 because 1, that was old at the time, and 2, it's because they had enough life experience at that point to be effective, right? And then now that's fairly young, right? I'm not even 35 yet, but if I hit 35, right, and I got elected president, and I did such a fantastic job, everybody loved it, maybe we should get elected that guy. Now with Congress, we should absolutely not have term limits. Here's why. Say you're AOC, what I think is the youngest elected person ever, or was at the time, right? And she's doing a fantastic job representing her constituency, right? Her constituency loves her. Why should these people not be able to keep electing somebody who's their representative in perpetuity to keep taking care of the job if they like the results that she is getting or the things that she is fighting for if she's not getting them, right? If same thing down here in Texas, if I wanted to keep electing somebody, they get more power the longer they're there, right? They become more effective. You might get these noobs in here, we'll never get anything done because one guy's here one time, they wrote a bill, I'm done
They don't just dissolve into the fucking ether the moment they're not elected.
Yeah,
Be clear.
Yeah, also, Gibbs,
They
let me
still
respond to you.
exist.
So the reason is because now, if you have, here's the thing. This that's a great point that Big Papa just said. But the point is that this person isn't like incapable of assisting the person at the seat. But now when you have to run somebody else, the seat is about the ideas and not about the person.
No, you're
that doesn't mean that the person's
corruption.
excluded. I have no problem if two people want to be like, hey, we're going to tag team this seat and we're going to just keep passing it back and forth. It breaks. It's just about breaking up the ability for them to have control on the seat.
This is what would happen. You're going to instead give the power to the local like offices, right? The Republican whatever office for, like, I don't know, Corpus Christi, Texas, or the Democrat office for Corpus Christi, Texas. Okay. And then they're going to get in cahoots, and they're never going to let anybody that's not in their part, and they're going to be more efficient because now we have two people that we always have to swap out, and you're never going to get an actual person from outside the party in there.
Maybe it's an overcorrection. I'll admit, maybe it's an overcorrection, Gibbs, but with the system we have right now, have people in Congress for like 40 to 50 years. There's obviously a problem with what we've got going on right now. So either term limits or having some sort of rotating in. I like the idea of rotating in because you don't block good people from actually delivering in that seat. But you
let's give it to Charlie real quick. Let's give it to Charlie. Go ahead. He's been raising her hand so nice. Okay.
She's very polite.
I'm sorry. I'm so tired. I feel like mush. I think that the issue with adding extra terms is we have a two-party system, which means that everyone kind of falls into line, which means that I think if presidents have more than 2 terms, it guarantees that one party, not always, I know that, congressional majorities and whatever, can overrule. It puts us in a position where there is too much of one thing. My God, I can't make words. I might need to go lay down.
If you need to go, I understand.
You're
Here, let me help you out. Because I'm with you. I'm following your trains of thought. We're on the same
wavelength. Are you following me?
I am.
Okay, cool.
I am. Let me kind of give you the reason that presidential term limits are good is because the presidency, the executive, has access to a lot of power. And one of the things we saw with FDR, for example, who had 4 terms, is this consolidation of power that shoved out the ability for others to compete with him, right? He gathered power. He was able to appoint leaders to these institutions and change the rules of these institutions. He had enough time to do it in such a way that it gave him more and more power. One of the reasons we have term limits is to mitigate the risk that an executive will use their power for personal gain, for perpetuity. We don't have term limits. Hold on. We don't have term limits the term limits aren't there for the good presidents. The term limits are there for the bad ones.
If that was the case, then why do we have term limits on the individual, not on the party? Because we get the same thing if you have one party that gets. If one party has the presidency for 15 presidents, do you think that that's not serving? Well, okay, I agree with you on the 2-party system, but I do think that generally in our elections we have to whittle down to 2 major candidates for the general election. So I think we have to look at the primaries and not guarantee that each party is going to have one of the 2 major general candidates.
Yeah, I feel so bad, Charlie. Seriously, if you need to go, I understand. Like we can sub in. If you want to stay, you're fine.
To lock in. I got this.
Okay, you got it. Okay, as long as you're okay. I'm not Hamas. I'm not going to hold you hostage, right? You're not Anne Frank. You're not going to be locked in my attic. Okay, you'll be okay.
Heard.
He has no idea how to respond to that.
Anyway,
I'm trying to reassure. It's not working, but it's okay.
No, that was actually slightly more threatening than anything else. That's okay. But again, I don't feel like we can have any sort of meaningful change in this way when we do have a 2-party system because we are locked into. I don't know. I know that the Dems were throwing around oligarchy for this upcoming Trump term, but it's always been an oligarchy, and it's been an oligarchy for a very long time. So again, we just have the people with the richest backers every single time, and that's not necessarily the will of the people.
Well, except for Trump. Kamala Harris outspent Trump 2-1.
Yeah, and that's a lot of fucking money for on both their parts. I don't know if you get that. I don't.
Yeah, I actually have an issue with all of political finance.
Yeah,
I actually hate campaign financing.
I was like a perfect revolve.
I take issue with like the length of campaigns. I have issue with the financing of campaigns. I have issue with super PACs. Like if you want to talk about like campaign
Well, how do you suggest
financing,
we do
then
elections?
we can do that. But
Purely social media reach, like purely
I like money in
virality.
politics.
that's honestly, it's like
I know I'm
it's
the
just so
minority here.
complicated. I honestly,
Well, yeah. How do you represent the people?
I don't even know if
in
I
a
could
campaign
present
without
like a
using
better.
money? Like people
Yeah, I mean,
always
I
want to
agree
say,
with that.
but people always want to say, I want to get rid of money
Like
in
an old
politics,
Skype
right?
call.
I'm sorry, I don't, right? Like I worked hard for my money. I've worked my whole fucking life.
Well,
I should be
I
able
think
to
the
use
problem-
my money to get my voice out there in some sort of way. And I don't have a problem with people doing that. And like the problem is with people that are lazy and just want to bitch and go, oh no, why does this guy have more reach than me? Well, it's because he worked his ass off and you didn't.
Well, I don't think
Not-
that's necessarily.
I wouldn't
Listen,
I
y'all
wouldn't
did
agree
the
with that.
2028.
Especially when you get to, especially
the
when you get to
leftist
modern
made-
especially when you get to local politics. That's just not exactly
No,
true.
the left
Like,
has made jealousy
but-
a virtue, and that is what has happened.
Well, I actually would argue local
Jealousy of
politics is
what?
probably where money is the most dangerous because you can have these billionaires flood local races at the like,
Oh, it
like the
absolutely
lower
is.
levels.
Local-
It's not as dangerous, I think, when you have Kamala and it's like, yeah, they're spending billions of dollars, they're running everywhere in the country. Like that
Well, I
makes
also
more
think-
sense.
And people underestimate like how much it actually costs to send every single registered Democrat mail. Like I think it's really easy to underestimate the amount of money that's
They need a
literally just
Doge.
necessary to share share anybody's information like nationally.
Well, thank
That's
God.
just hard to do.
Thank God
But-
it's really hard to buy elections too. Elon Musk tried to buy the Wisconsin Supreme Court election.
You say he
But, I mean,
tried
it's
to
not-
buy it
Well,
because he
that's
ran a
interesting.
It's not hard to-
Temple, don't you have a
Well,
stat
can I
on this?
just-
Money
can I
doesn't
just
always
finish my
translate
point?
to
Temple
wins.
has a stat
Can I
on
just
this,
finish
though.
my main point?
Yeah, finish your
No.
main point. Land your plane, Amelia Earhart.
If you guys want to argue about money in politics, we can argue about money in politics. I thought we were here to talk about whether or not Trump is a wannabe dictator. Okay, I have issues with money in politics, Mr. New York Shade. I understand you want to bring in a bunch of topics that nobody's discussing. We aren't discussing it though. I'd like to move forward onto another topic.
What are you talking about?
Get his ass.
No,
Oh my
I'm
What are
god.
you talking about? I've been quiet this
Kamala
entire
Harris.
time.
What about Kamala Harris?
Dude,
Yeah, because a point was
What
brought
about
up.
Hillary's
Money was
emails?
running the
you guys
election.
knew as soon
Well, I
as
would
they
say
chose her, it was
politicians
over,
and
right?
give him the
politicians
stat. Give him
in
the
general.
stat.
Joe Biden, you guys.
I literally had just said
Biden.
the Dems. I said the Dems complained. My statement beforehand was the
Jill Biden?
Dems complained about an oligarchy and was labeling this up the current Trump term as an oligarchy. And I made the point that it always has been an oligarchy. That was
I
my
agree with
point.
that.
So I literally just
Well,
But you're
I
absolutely
both
correct.
sides
You're
did.
absolutely correct. Yeah, she's
So
absolutely correct.
yeah.
And
But Pentuple brought up an interesting stat yesterday. I think you should tell it now about, you just brought up the Wisconsin elections. Why don't you tell us that stat you found out, Pentuple, about the money?
was this me?
Yeah, it was
I-
you.
I will
You
say
remember about the
also,
dark
Did I
money?
find the
The
stat?
dark-
I don't remember
What
the
it is.
Oh, the
stat.
dark
No,
money,
so yeah,
whatever
yeah,
you
that is.
mentioned
Okay.
money.
The
Dark
dark
money.
money.
Did you guys know
You
the
remember
super
this?
chats are dark money? Gang,
Yeah, yeah.
thanks for the
Dark
super
money?
chats.
Oh, the
Dark
dark
money?
money thing?
But
Yeah, dark money
regardless,
thing.
Money thing.
Regardless.
Was
Can
this
I-
Wisconsin? That didn't have to do with Wisconsin, though.
Yeah, it had to do with the elections
What the hell
overall.
is
though.
I
dark
will
money?
say,
There was a
that's
super
all.
chat.
Okay.
The-
Well, I'm throwing a flag on the play because you guys are getting
I will
into
say-
territory that we are not going to get into today. We can do it another time. We can do it
Convenient that
another
we
time.
doesn't
We can have
wanna talk
another
about the
debate
dark
on
money.
this. Quiet. We got to get back on track. So I guess this
So
is.
you
I'll
don't
give
wanna
it. I'll
hear
give this one a
about
New
the
York shade,
largest
right? I'll
super
give this
PAC?
one a New York shade because he's been
2-1 Democrat. Okay.
he's been quiet, right? And I do have a question because he mentioned that he doesn't think Trump is a dictator. What would Trump have to do? What would Trump have to do to say? What actions would he have to take for you to consider him either a dictator or a want-to-be dictator? Where is your line, sir?
Invading Poland? I don't know.
So
There's
he has,
like,
to, he has to
obviously-
invade. What about Greenland?
Yeah, take Greenland. We need it.
No, not Greenland. No.
For what?
Or Canada.
So
Take it.
We're gonna
not a
take
dictator
Canada.
if he
We're
invades
annexing
Canada.
Greenland,
I
but a
don't think
dictator
we're
if he
on board.
invades Poland.
If he invaded Greenland,
Invaded military.
Base,
If he
base,
militarily
please do.
invaded Greenland, then yes,
I
he
don't
would
think
be
that's
a
happening in
dictator,
any
and that would be
universe.
unconstitutional. This is a completely
What? No, he
diplomatic
wouldn't.
negotiation. happening with Greenland. This kind of hysteria that Democrats frame around, oh, Trump is going to invade Panama, it's going to invade Greenland. It's
please
absolute nonsense.
I think it's.
He said, hold on. He said several times that he might.
He said he would nuke
Hang on.
hurricanes.
Isn't it weird though that Trump's talking about like we need?
I still don't
Greenland
have
for,
your
like,
line. Hold on.
national
So I'm sorry. I'm
security,
so
but-
sorry. I'm so sorry, Pentuple, because he hasn't answered my question. Right? Other than invading Poland, do you have another line here?
Yes, a military invasion of Greenland without their consent or Senate
so-
approval.
Well,
So
you can't
nothing
do a
else
military
aside from a military
Well,
invasion.
there's
Just to be
55,000
clear.
Give me an
people that
example.
fuck
Give me an
their consent.
example.
So
Like,
He's a dictator when he like actually cancels elections.
No,
right?
how about
I mean,
this?
like,
How about this?
Obviously, that's what the line would
Oh,
be. Like,
canceling
well, you know,
why would we-
so
He's a
Zelensky's
dictator because I
then.
don't like what
So
he's doing as
Zelensky-
president.
so
Then Biden's a
Zelensky's a
dictator to
dictator.
me. Like that's
Well-
not useful.
Well,
Guys,
Zelensky canceled elections. Is he a dictator?
I don't give a fuck about Zelensky.
That's fair.
That's not what we're talking about
But
here.
Yeah.
Wicker. Hold on. Don't
Talking about
run
Donald
away from
Trump.
this,
Well,
Wick,
you guys-
because you asked what the line is. If someone cancels elections, most people consider that.
do they do
person a
it through the
dictator.
Constitution? Is it a
well, that's-
constitutional
I
legal
don't
way?
care.
Is there?
So,
is there?
okay.
Hold on, because this
So
is important.
Churchill
Stop,
also
because this
stay
is
in
an
power
answer. There's an
during
answer to
the war.
stop. There's an answer to this question. If there was a provision within the Constitution that said under these conditions in wartime that you should and have to, it's not a choice. You don't get to. You have to. You must wait to hold elections until after the crisis is over, then no, that's not a dictatorship. He's
No,
doing
if Trump
exactly what
declared
is
martial law
what is
tomorrow
put
and said we're
in.
suspending elections, he
put
wouldn't be
in.
a dictator.
Well, that's not in our Constitution. It is in theirs.
Oh, how convenient! That
What do
we
you mean,
don't
how
hold each other to the
convenient?
same standard. You're not holding the same
How
standard.
convenient
Well,
that
so
another
that's just
place
the
has different
Ukrainian
laws.
government, Ben.
Come on,
There's
yeah,
no
hold on.
real,
But
like-
this is
Yes,
this
Convenient. They
this is
speak
coping
another
right here.
language
Hold
too.
on, this is coping. I think that we can all agree if someone cancels, for any reason really, if you're going to say you're a democratically elected president and you're maintaining yourself as a democratically elected guy and you're not fucking Emperor Palpatine, that canceling elections makes you a dictator. Otherwise, you're saying Palpatine did nothing wrong. And for those of you who don't understand, Palpatine's the epitome of a goddamn dictator.
Well, the dark side
whenever we're
doesn't even
sitting here
make
going,
sense. Let's be honest. There's no reason to choose the dark side over the light.
So just to be clear, when Churchill canceled elections when he was fighting Hitler, he was a dictator?
I mean,
Like-
that by y'all's metric, I mean that's what it would be, right? Like that's
Is there
what I asked y'all.
ever? Is there
See, I
never a
think-
This is why-
justification
this
for
is why I'm
assuming the
saying
role of a
what-
dictator?
if there
in
is,
history?
if there
It matters what
Is
the
it always
Constitution
bad?
says in that country. If there is
So
a Constitution,
we go to war
And
with
also-
Venezuela or Iran, then he's
And
fine.
it also matters the intent and the level of severity. Like obviously, in an extreme situation, if there was literally nuclear war, it's like how can you even fucking run an election? But the problem is that with Trump declaring martial law or suspending elections, there's no justification on the level of World War III. If there was, I might be like, oh fuck, maybe. Like I guess I don't know what else we're gonna do.
Guys,
and I think this is a great point that brings it back to the fact that I think it's a great point. It brings it back to the topic that it's not just about, these hardline rules in every regard. There are some circumstances where you could see another term added, but it really matters the behavior of the person that's in power, like what they've said in the past and how that relates to their actions, which is why I think, no, there probably isn't an issue with having 3 terms or having 5-year terms. Really, the issue is that, my issue at least is that Trump is not trustworthy. He clearly has made many different reaches for additional power that is not afforded to him. I think this just goes
Shade
back to
was
the
trying to
main
get in. Shade was trying to get in. I want to give him space to get in. Shade, you were yelling.
I agree.
Guys, the topic of today's debate is Trump a dictator? Buckaroo has offered vibes as evidence, but what has Trump done in the last 80 days that
Did you
makes
hear
him a
the fucking
dictator?
words that just came out of my mouth, or are you just ignoring them?
I think vibes. What overreaches
You're a
has he done?
dumbass.
You haven't given a single piece of evidence. What is it? All right, Buckaroo, keep screeching.
Actually, Shenandoah and Buckaroo have presented quite a bit of evidence.
Well,
I'm not gonna lie.
let's dive through one. Let's dive through the best one.
Okay.
I think
I got a couple.
I think
You
Shenandoah
pick
is
Charlie.
better.
You pick Charlie. No, you pick.
Me?
I want you're having fun.
okay.
I
Well,
want
I'll
you
say. Okay, my biggest issue, I will say, I don't even know if Shenandoah brought this one up. I'm pretty freaked out by the though New York Shade. I know you're going to disagree. I'm pretty freaked out by what I see as the very illegal disappearing of
Good answer.
legal people who are here legally.
Green cards, yeah.
Are you guys
No,
familiar?
That was on my list.
Documented people. I don't like undocumented people being disappeared either. I'm kind of a no borders sort of person, but that's a whole other conversation. But you know, green people with green cards, people who are here legally, who are, you know, here to work and live permanently. I don't like that they're being disappeared. I mean, they threw some, you know, gay
I like that
barber with an
99%
autism
of them are
awareness.
being disappeared. 99% of them, I think we would all be glad are being disappeared. A
Correct.
lot of these
Yeah,
are MS-13
people
gang
with
members
green
with criminal
cards?
histories that
we
are
just got
horrible.
free
Yeah, no,
green
we're
cards?
talking. Okay, we're not talking about people with green cards getting
They
sent
threw
to
a
fucking
little. They
Guantanamo,
threw some
right?
gay barber.
Yeah,
in
yeah, I know
prison
you guys
who
have
had like an
other one, but that's
autism
why I
awareness
said.
tattoo.
That's why I said.
That's
One gay.
insane.
It's the funniest statement I've ever heard. I'm so sorry. They threw a
It's
gay
true.
barber in prison.
It was just some gay
I
little
agree,
barber that
but
they threw in prison for no
Well,
reason.
you know,
It's
here, let me just throw something at you. Let
He
me just
was
throw something at you.
homosexual.
When we have
He
20,
was,
20
yes.
hold on, by the left's own admission, we might have up to like 20 million people here legally already, right? All right, and like I don't know, in Austin, just yesterday they announced the thing. They caught 40 people from Trinidad, right? And none of these people are like even questioned about being like if they're here legally or if they're here or if they're gay barbers. No, these are hardened gang
Have they
members.
gotten to trial? How do you know they're
Hold on,
Trinidad?
hold on, because we know. Now listen. So now if we have 41 and one of them happens to be a gay, a gay barber. Here's my vibe. My vibe is, man, that sucks. I'd like to get my hair cut by the gay barber. I'm sure that he's gonna make me look fantastic. But you know, maybe we investigate his legal status and we get rid of all these people that are actually bad. And if he got caught up in it, we can fix it later. Let's get these people fucking out of here.
I think
His
that we
rights will be
should not
protected.
endanger people's. I think that we have a responsibility to, you know, not endanger people's lives or disrupt
Yeah,
their
maybe we
lives
shouldn't
to
be letting
such
so
an
many
extreme
illegals
degree.
Well,
in.
let Charlie finish and you can respond. Charlie, finish your thought, and then
Again, I think that we have a responsibility. I mean, like, okay, listen. I lived in Scotland for a time. I had a student visa. If you guys had heard about someone like me and, you know, an American citizen just randomly being like picked up off the fucking street and deported back here for no reason because I had a tattoo, which I don't. But if I had, like, you would be like, well, Scotland fucking sucks. That's crazy. There was no process here. You were just, you know, you had a tattoo and they sent you back to America. You would be like, wow, the UK is sounds awful. I would not like to go there. That doesn't seem safe for people.
I noticed you guys
That
keep
doesn't seem
pointing
like
at
a safe
tattoos,
or
but
normal
you've
place.
not once produced an actual citizen being caught up in this, and I want to push this back on you guys.
Hold
'cause
on,
what do
I
you
have
suggest-
some
hold on,
interesting.
hold on.
Hold on, no.
You wanted to
I
send
can
this
produce a
gay
few.
barber.
Wick has something interesting.
I can produce a few, right?
The
When we
big
talk
man.
about citizens getting deported, there's been a few that have been detained for hours, and the only reason that they didn't get deported
Detained
is
for
because
hours.
they happened to have their wallet on them, which had their ID. If they had
Happened
not
to
had
have
their
their
wallet on
wallet
them,
on.
they would be gone.
believe
Do you
that.
know why?
Happened-
Because there's no
happened to have
process.
their wallet
When they
on
get
them.
snatched
believe
up off
that.
the street, when these people get
Hold on,
snatched
guys.
up off the
Wow.
street, they don't get a lawyer, they don't get a phone call, they don't get
Well, keep your wallet.
anything. They're put into a van, they're driven to the
Oh, so you want
detainment
people to have
center,
mandatory
and they were
ID?
driven to an airport. We have
I
no
would like
idea.
the ID.
And I want to stress this because this is
Papers,
worth
please. All right,
stressing.
fuck you.
And then I'm going to read the super chats because I got a couple of them and I'm going to read them.
So you
and
can't
make some
produce
money.
any actual
But
cases,
here's
though,
what we're going to do.
fair.
You can't produce a single gang member that's been put behind bars. You can't
Whoa,
prove that
you
because
are-
there's been
that
no
challenge-
process.
What? Are you
There's been no
serious?
trial. There's been no evidence. There's been nothing
We absolutely
presented.
can.
Because they aren't
Bro,
given.
you're
they aren't
literally
given-
gonna tell us
they
that
aren't given
none of
access
the-
to due
okay,
process in the
you're-
same way that
We don't
that
know if they're
American
citizens. We don't know
aren't
how
being
many are
accessed.
citizens, if any
Bro,
are citizens.
okay,
We
first of
don't
all,
know
it is
because they
not
haven't
hard,
gone through a
and
process.
It is not hard to know who's a citizen or not. And
Oh,
what do we
how-
do with people
how would
who
you
we
know?
do know are here?
Hold
to
on,
vote?
no, Pentuple. You're
Nick,
going
I can
down the street.
literally-
I'm gonna
I
put
can literally- I
put
can
5
walk
people
you
in a
to a
lineup,
city,
and you're gonna
take
tell me
you
which
down
one's
an
a
alley,
citizen, which
show
one's
you a
not,
bunch of
just for
illegals with
eyeballing
tattoos
it.
and guns selling drugs on the street, and you would still be like, "Oh no, I don't know."
Hold on, no,
A
I'm
lot
really
of
curious.
to be
that
fair,
there's
also
I'm
people
really
here
there
curious.
are
If
a
I
lot of
put
people
5
who
people in a
knows
line,
things
how
that-
how
can't
would
even
you?
say where the
How
fucking
would you
people
just
are.
by your
People
sight
are.
with
Where
your
the street
superpower,
phone
Pentuple?
with-
How would you
phone
decide which
using
ones are
Using
citizens or
guns
not?
Tuesday
and selling
preferred
drugs
dietary
does not give
selection
somebody
is.
some
Wait,
sort
you
of
can't even say
Your
that
illegal
over the
phone
street.
status.
knows what you want to eat on Wednesday
Come on.
mornings. The idea that we have no idea
on,
who's
Wick.
here
Hold on, we
legally is so
don't. They don't
goofy.
get an
Wait,
appeal.
you
People are
couldn't
saying
even
they
do
having
the show
appeals.
days,
There are no
Wick.
I think
appeals.
it's- I-
Hey, wait,
but-
Wick, show me
but
the one
part of the
case that you
problem is
had
the
of a
lack of-
citizen being deported.
They're
I'll
getting
wait.
put
Part of the
into
problem-
prisons.
They're getting put where? And then what happens?
Detained. How long can you be detained? You
We
sit
don't
for hours.
know. That's the thing.
Yeah,
We
why
don't
are they
know.
being
Part of
detained
the
and not just shipped
problem
off,
is-
Nick?
We don't know.
ridiculous.
You
Part of
guys
the
keep
problem
yelling
is-
over me.
know it.
You
This
guys
isn't
keep yelling
talking
over me,
about
but
American
you
citizens.
again.
I was talking about people
It's
with,
so
with
unserious.
their
Even with green
cards,
cards,
which
with
is
visas,
an issue.
even
That's an
And none of
issue.
you
even
have
citizens
not
we
one.
don't know.
If I commit a crime,
Hold on.
Being detained.
Hold
There
on.
was some
Wait,
random
hold me.
Canadian
You know what?
actress that was detained for like
Yeah,
2
we-
fucking
for
weeks.
2
Some
weeks,
random
yes.
white Canadian lady, okay? Not these
Who
like
came in legally,
you know,
by the way,
the-
who was going for a work
Yeah.
visa,
Wait.
by the way. But here's a
Also-
point. I will mute if I
should
have
rights
to.
afforded to people,
Yeah,
whether
I
or
will
not
mute
we-
if I have to, right?
So what
Because
do
I
we
need
do
to.
about the
oh
actual
my
people
God.
that we do
Fair
know
enough.
are bad?
I will boom. I will boom. I will mute every. I need a button to mute everyone, right? Because none of you are obeying today, and you're all being naughty. Okay, but I want to get this out because it's important, because this matters, because there are facts of the matter here. We have at least 3 cases in which the government of the United States, the Trump administration, has not only violated the due process rights of visa holders and green card holders, but in some cases, at least in one, they admit their error and then have done nothing to correct it. And this man was sent into prison in El Salvador, the one country the judge forbids the government from sending him back to, right? And what happened? They're like, we can't get him back. He's just gone. We don't know how many citizens have been deported because they have no process to identify the citizens from non-citizens. There, I will unmute everyone.
There's 0. 0 is the answer.
Can I
Wick
jump
has
in
no
real quick?
evidence, and his lack of evidence is now his assertion of proof. Brilliant.
I think the problem.
Very, very, very serious.
I mean, this is
bring
the
something.
problem I have with.
Very credible.
Let me bring something up here. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Eisenhower's 1956 Project Wetback. And yes, it was called Project Wetback. And what that was is that he deported over 300,000 Mexicans. He used military raids, detentions, and mass deportations, with some immigrants left in unfamiliar Mexican cities under harsh conditions, leading to deaths from sunstroke. The operation also inadvertently deported some U.S. citizens of Mexican descent. Not a single court ruling since then, in 1956, has ever found this to be Project Wetback to be unconstitutional. In fact, a court ruling in 1986 said it was. So, what's the difference here?
Well,
Really?
Let's do it again. What is the point here?
Well, I want to
It
add
sucks.
something to
You
that.
don't be like,
Yes,
oh, that's
deport them.
okay.
Deport them
Oh,
all.
I'm afraid I
The
don't.
Supreme
I'm
Court
afraid I
has
just don't
said.
understand the question here. Like, what do you mean?
We
What
have
is the
historical
difference between
precedent.
Well,
what?
Wick was also.
Were we
Wick-
talking about the constitutionality of deportation?
Hold on, we do
Well,
have,
hold
but
on,
we do have SCOTUS. We do have SCOTUS rulings, right, that show that immigrants get due process rights. They
Yes, that's
have
exactly what I
Fifth
wanted to say.
Amendment rights. They have 14th Amendment rights, right? So this idea
Well,
that no
it's-
But
no
hold on,
court,
wait, but
hold on,
Wick- but-
this idea
but-
that no court has ever ruled it unconstitutional is just fucking wrong.
But Wick,
Just
here's
wrong.
the problem.
It's
Here's the
just
a
problem.
little bit more
We're- we're-
complicated
here's the
than that,
problem, Wick.
legally
Here's the
speaking,
problem with
obviously,
what you
Wick.
just
It's not
Here's
that
the-
I
simple.
thought they
Hold
approved
on,
You know
Wick,
that,
Wick, here's
surely.
here's
I
another
thought they
problem
approved
though.
the revocation of of
It's
certain
just like
rights
pretending to be
to
credible.
people they believe to be undocumented immigrants. I thought that was like a pretty big
Non-
issue. Is that
non-citizens.
undocumented immigrants aren't afforded the same rights as citizens? Yeah.
Well, I want to
Non-citizens-
also.
They
I want to also
they,
add.
they don't have the right to vote. That's true. They don't have certain rights as citizens
Well, no,
do. But when it comes to the
also not
Fifth
afforded
Amendment,
the right to
this
due
is from Justice
process.
Scalia. This is from Justice Scalia, famous liberal left-hard judge, right? Who says it's very clear, and there's mountains of precedent to show that aliens, is what the term he used, have both Fifth Amendment protection and 14th Amendment protection. And we have Bridges versus Wixon, which clearly states that they also have First Amendment protections. And guess what, gang? They also have Second Amendment protections. So, you know.
I want to take umbrage with something you said though, Wick. You also complained about being held for hours. Ha! Don't give a shit. I'll tell you why. Because we know it's constitutional to be held nationally up to 72 hours. In Texas, 48. Here's the thing: when you're going to sit here and go, "Oh no, they were held nationally without charges for hours." I'm sorry you're being held to the same standard as a citizen, because that's already been determined by the Supreme Court, which how long they can be
Hold
held
on, do
for.
citizens get a phone call?
So hold on, Wick. Are you going to sit here and tell me
citizens get a phone
that these
call?
people? Yeah, I mean, they might not
Okay,
get that.
these
72-hour
people
period.
didn't.
They might not get in that 72-hour period. They might get it at the end of it. They don't have to just give it to you right then. You just have to get it before when they charge you with something, right? That's correct. Yeah.
I actually have no idea when they.
Yeah,
get
I mean, we have a lawyer here. You can
That's
answer.
at least true. I'm
Who's
pretty
the
sure
lawyer
that's at
here?
least true when it comes to being arrested, like by police officers when you're under
Yeah, when they're holding you
under
without charge.
detention. Yeah, if you're under detention, that's not actually an arrest.
Yeah, you don't.
So
you don't
you're
get,
afforded. You're not afforded the same rights that you are when you're
if
actually
that's the
arrested.
case,
and
Wick,
charged.
then you're mad that they're holding these legal aliens to the same quality of life and same standard as American citizens. Wow, when did you want people to start getting more rights than American citizens, Wick?
I already asked you, right? Phone call, lawyer. These
So,
are
yeah,
things
but
that
you can-
citizens have a right to. That these
Yeah, if
detainees
they're
are
charged
not
with a
getting
crime.
a right to.
If they're charged with a crime, like here's the thing.
I think they should have a right to it either way, but
Yeah.
I mean, then you got to take numbers up with the Supreme Court, and y'all just said y'all don't want the Supreme Court. Y'all want the Supreme Court to enforce things, or y'all don't want them. I don't know. Y'all been flip flopping on that, depending on which
No,
side
we
it works
haven't.
out for y'all.
I did not make any comments about what I want the
The
Supreme Court
executive
to do or
branch
not
and the
to enforce.
legislative branch
Oh,
should
so
obey the
y'all-
courts. Yes, they should
Oh, so
follow
the
the court
legislative
orders.
branch
If they
should be
have
able
a
to
problem
follow
with
them
the
and hold
ruling
them
from the
72
Supreme
hours.
Court, or I'm sorry,
Impeach
not the
him.
Supreme Court. If they have a
So hold
problem,
them 72 hours.
if judges,
No
or I'm
call.
sorry, if the legislative or the executive branch has a problem with a judge's ruling, they have a process to go through to appeal that ruling, which they can do, and they should.
So you're
do.
all right with 72 hours without a phone call if you're detained?
Bring it back to Trump. It
No-
just
no
seems like
charge.
he doesn't
No,
care
I
about
think
the
that
process.
when you get
Gibbs-
detained, you
Gibbs-
should have the access to a lawyer and a phone call, regardless if you're a citizen or not.
Oh,
Gibbs,
oh.
let's say
Detention
that
or
let's say that
arrest.
by mistake you accidentally fall
This is-
into like a vat of like bronzer, and for some reason people think you're Latino.
I am
and then-
Latino.
You are?
He's Mexican.
Yeah, my dad's actually illegal. Yeah.
Oh shit! This is the opposite of last time. Okay.
That makes
I got
that
it.
makes his hypothetical a
Lost
lot
your
easier.
powers.
That's a lot easier.
What happened to your
You just-
phonology powers?
Okay. Anyways, so all right, Mexican man. You get fucking picked up on the street.
Mhm.
Would you particularly like to be subjected to a 72-hour detention with the inability to call a lawyer or a family member or anything like that? Wouldn't you like to have at least the ability to call somebody and say, "Hey, look, this is where I am. Can I please have like a fucking representative or something?" Wouldn't that at least be a very basic part of due process that you should have? Or are you really telling me that
does have
if
that.
by accident they
Well,
clock
check
you?
this
and
out,
they
check
don't
this
have
out,
it?
check
This
Hold on,
hypothetical you guys are
hold on,
coming
I
up
got
with
it.
doesn't
I
happen.
got it. I
Not
got it.
real.
Hold on though.
It
Hold
can
on.
totally happen.
I would also
No, it doesn't happen.
I would also like to
You
not
can prove
be
your
taxed
citizenship within
to
like
pay
15
for,
seconds.
Oh, I would
It's
also
so
like
easy.
to not be taxed for welfare programs, but I am, and I have to follow the rules as the law as the government because they have a lot more guns than I do. So guess what? Looks like I'm going to be there and having to either do jury duty or being held 72 hours or 48 hours without being charged with something if they want me to. Yeah, I guess it's tough tips, Gibbs, but that's the rules. Like,
I'm really sorry, man.
like a lot of
When they
things.
fucking deport you to Venezuela, it's like gonna be fucking adios, brother.
I think
I'm
I'll be.
sorry.
I
I'll
think I'll
say
be
again,
fine.
the
I'm
answer
fucking
is
sorry.
zero.
I mean, do they not have
There's
internet
zero
in Venezuela?
examples
I'll
of
be able to
this.
access bank
You
account, get back.
don't
in.
know
all-
that. That's the problem.
No,
You
we
don't.
do
You
know
don't.
that.
You don't know that there
know.
Okay,
are.
Wick, were you not just
you don't know
claiming
that
that
there
we
are.
It's not the whole
Just so you
problem.
just- you know
it's not
that
the
it's
whole
wrong.
problem.
You know that's not how it works.
Hold on.
We
It's not
don't
the whole
have proof of
problem
I'm
it.
telling
here
you how
is
it
like
works.
a
We had deported
revocation
a
of
citizen.
due
You
process.
Why do you
exist
think that
on
they invoke
every
the
Which is
aliens
channel.
anymore?
dictatory.
You have no
which is
evidence.
dictatory.
It is
That
dictator.
was
Proof
my
of
that was
evidence.
my
But
point.
you're-
Is that
but
that's
you're
the biggest thing that
Here's
kind
the
of freaks
problem.
me out.
What
It's like,
you guys are trying to
pretty
do is you
sussy.
want people that we know are here illegally to jock up
To
this
have a trial.
judicial system for 10 years. Yeah, we know that's
Yes,
what you would
to
like
have
to
a
do
trial.
to help
Wouldn't it be nice?
achieve your
Yeah,
immigration
because
goals.
that's
But if
good.
somebody is
I
here
don't
and
like
we know,
illegal immigration.
Okay.
I just
if
want due
somebody
process.
is here and we know that they are illegally here,
How do you know they're
why do
illegally
we
here?
have to litigate
You
that?
Hold on,
have
how
the
do you know
power
they're
of
illegally
determining
here?
That.
So we're going to spend 20 years going
You
through
have
these
to
cases. That's not what
have
we're
a
gonna
process.
do. Sorry,
People who
you
are
guys
documented
lost.
did have
We
proper
already
guys
have
lost.
documentation at
we already
some
have
point.
an immigration court, and most of these people that are getting rounded up are the ones that are already out after have
You guys
gone.
wanna bump
And for
up
the
the
first hearing,
judicial
they've already
system.
had
It's
a
so
day in
obvious.
court.
Man,
most
that's
of them.
so fucking nonsense. You can't just
It is-
justify
it's
getting
true.
rid. You can't justify getting rid of due process on the
It's
basis
not getting
that due
rid
process
of.
is
This
slow.
is you guys not
Let me ask you a question.
understanding due
Because
process to
previously
start
they were
with.
able to call a lawyer. They had
Shut
immigration
up.
judges.
No,
They had
let
people they could talk to, and that's
So they've already been in these processes. All right, let me ask you a question.
The answer is zero. It's still
I
zero. And
as
when it's not
Latino-
zero, we'll know because
Hold
Wick
on.
will be the first to tell me.
No, Pip,
I
hold
know
on,
for
let me
sure
ask
Wick's
you
going to let me
question.
know as soon
Let me-
as this
let me-
zero becomes a 1. But until
Hold
that
on.
happens, you
No,
guys
Wick
are fucking
did
hyperbolic for
Wick not
partisan
provide an
reasons,
example?
obviously.
Hold on, Pitch.
Obviously hyper-partisan.
If I jump the border right now, and I jump over the border as a Latino male, and I'm like, hola, ¿cómo estás? And they come and pick me up, and they take me to immigration court, and they say, okay, we caught you red-handed jumping the border. We took you to immigration court. Now we're going to go catch and release, because that was the policy. This is your hearing, whatever. Why? Why do we need to spend and waste thousands and thousands of taxpayer dollars when we literally picked them up 3 feet from the wall that we caught him at? Why do we need to go through this extra step when we can just be like, you're gone?
There's going to be a lot of racial profiling, frankly.
Well,
which
first off, okay.
has been happening and will continue to happen. They stopped
But sorry, that
Native
was a
Americans, like
question.
Navajo people.
Sorry, that was a question directed at me, not to cut you
Yeah.
off, Charlie. That was
Oh,
my bad.
no, go ahead,
Oh,
Shenandoah.
Shenandoah. Yeah, you put her in her place, Shenandoah. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. So Gibbs, yeah, I think if you're jumping the border and you have a fucking trial, you could be deported.
Yeah, okay, but why do we want to go through all these extra steps whenever it's like we caught you 3 feet from the border, we watched you jump it, you had wire
Well, then it
cutters
could be
in
a
your
nice
head.
quick trial. You could just have it be
It
quick
done.
takes 6
trial.
years. It
Oh,
takes 6
relatively
years
quick
on average. It takes 6
You have
years.
no
on average
idea
for
how-
immigration
what you're
court.
Why do I
asking
want to
that
waste
you
my
I mean,
didn't
if
tax
you're really
dollars on
trying
this?
to,
Why
So
is
just
that
to be
not-
clear,
really
just to be
trying to
clear,
work with.
yeah, if you knew, if for example, there was a guy like your fucking next door neighbor, and you were like, I definitely fucking know this guy's a crack dealer, and they catch this guy red-handed. He's a citizen. You don't think he should get a trial, even though he has like fucking
Wait, what?
evidence on him?
Well, he's a citizen, so that's totally different.
So wait, but why? Why? I think that the Constitution.
Wait,
Because he's a
what?
citizen.
You
Because
don't
the
get like
Supreme Court has
safe
ruled
harbor.
that.
You don't get like it's not like I'm here. I'm in the safe zone. I get due process.
Yeah.
You have to go.
Yeah,
You
you
go through
don't
a whole
just-
trial to prove I got here
Yeah,
illegally.
You know
That's
what?
not what we're
Guess
doing.
what? We're a nation
Yeah,
of laws. We're a civilized
no,
fucking people. We
but
don't
We're a
give
nation
people
of
a
laws.
trial.
You guys just let 40 million in fucking illegally. That's not a nation of laws,
Yeah,
bro.
and-
Hello,
This-
ICE?
Sorry, this-
Hello,
this-
ICE?
this-
Hold on.
this-
Hello,
this-
ICE? Hello, ICE? Gibbs?
Myself.
Gibbs?
I have
There's
no
a guy named
control
Admiral
over
Gibbs.
whether
Admiral
it
Gibbs was
exists
picked
because
up
we're not
3
a
feet
nation
from the
following
border.
its
You should
laws.
go pick him up.
That is a weird argument.
Get me right
Hold on,
now. Come
Gibbs?
guys.
Gibbs?
Hold on, I got it.
I let in 80 million Mexicans.
Go
I
get
got
him.
you,
Go
boy.
get him, gang.
You let in probably 80
Gibbs
million,
won't get-
90.
Gibbs won't get a trial.
I
Gibbs
have
won't get a
lived
phone
so
call.
far
Gibbs
had
won't
it
get
on the
anything.
border.
I haven't
He'll
read
just
it.
be gone.
I haven't read it. Just this occasion.
I love
I
how
have
you
no
guys think it's
control
impossible to tell
over
who's a
who-
citizen but still oppose voter ID.
Hold on.
do
How are
guys
you
balance that?
deciding who is a citizen?
How do you make that?
Hold on.
Hang
I don't
You guys
actually
oppose
oppose
voter
voter
ID.
I don't
But you're
actually
like,
Can you
well,
answer?
there's no
wait, whoa,
possible
whoa,
way
can
we
you
could tell who's a
answer
citizen
Wick's
or not.
question, though?
How do you
how do you
balance
tell
that?
who's
Hold
a
on, hold
citizen?
on.
That's your
Wick.
hypocrisy.
Wick,
I
is
do
your
not
How do you
agree.
tell who's a citizen?
Wick,
I don't
Wick,
care.
Wick, is your
You're
argument
the
that
one
the United
claiming
States?
that they know
How
who
do you-
citizens are.
Come on.
Well, no. This is
Couple.
Shade.
How
Shade,
do
give
you
me.
know-
I want
Wait,
Shade to
wait,
ask.
wait,
Ask
Hold
me
on. We'll
this
get
question when you interrupted me.
Yeah. I want Shade to
Wick,
ask his
it-
question real quick. Go ahead.
Is your claim that the U.S. doesn't have an internal directory
your
of
claim?
its citizens? Shut the fuck up, you banshee. Is your claim that the
I'm
U.S.
glad you know my name, bitch.
Why did you go for her?
Well
I feel like
said.
me and Shenandoah have been
Is
like the
your-
most. Why'd
Is
you-
your claim
No,
that the
I've
U.S.
not been
government?
mean to him.
Okay, this is stupid.
Oh God. Okay. I
Okay.
see.
Ask me your question. Is my claim that
Is your claim that the U.S. government doesn't have a directory of its citizens that it can't cross-reference the illegal immigrants with?
it does have that, but what it can't do is
oh,
decide
oh.
if you are on that list or not. If I say that Gibbs' real name is Garcia
here illegally, get the
Gomez
fuck out.
or Juarez or
throw my ass
something,
out.
answer
he
is
has
zero.
to be able to answer that and prove that he's not, or at least
Okay.
be allowed to counter the claim that has been made that he is an illegal immigrant. Without
Okay.
due process, we don't know who is an illegal immigrant or not.
Okay.
There is no way
Okay,
to
without
tell.
due process, hey, hang on. Without due process, we don't know who's a citizen or not, but we certainly don't need voter ID.
Hold
Why
on.
are you
Who
bringing
says
up
that we
voter
don't
ID?
need voter
Because
ID?
you guys
even
will
try.
argue that we
Who
don't need
here
voter
is
ID,
against
but now
voter
you're
ID?
arguing We have no way
How
of telling who's a
convenient.
citizen or not.
Who's against voter
You guys
ID?
are so unserious.
I'm not. I like
This is
voter
why
ID.
you lost the popular vote. You guys are getting blown
Brother,
out.
you are
This is
arguing with ghosts.
basic hypocrisy.
No, he's actually right. He's absolutely right
Get
here.
some fucking grip.
He's
Talk
right
to
here.
the
You just
people
said
in
it.
the call.
You've stated two things. One, we cannot tell who is a citizen or not without due process. Yet you
Right.
also hold the position that we do not need
No, I
voter
don't.
ID.
Yeah, well, the left
Explain
does.
that to me.
So-
Please explain how that is not a left
I need you to
position.
policy.
I need
The
us
left
to use
holds
our
that
brains. I
position.
need you to use. Okay, can I speak for just a moment?
No.
Explain.
Just please, just a moment.
Go.
All right. To prove, there has to be several cross references. You can have a passport and ID, but those things can also be forged. Okay, and people can look a little different from
Literally
the picture. So you
everything.
need to be able to prove. You need to be able to like have a whole fucking big ass fucking database of bullshit to prove that you are a citizen, that you're born here, that you're here. Oh, I think it. No, we're good. That you're here legally and that you're a citizen. Like again, you can't just be like, here's my ID and this proves everything. Like
Well, I think
again,
part of the
Kind of proves a lot. I mean,
part of
illegals
the
don't have
problem of
IDs.
no due process, though, is that like, how would you
So that's why I'm
make
asking you,
sure
why
they're
do you have
given the
confidence in our
time to
elections?
search this directory in the first place if they're not given any due process?
Well,
If they're not given due process, you're not actually affording them
You
any
guys have
right to the
adopted
time
our model
necessary.
for voter ID for this argument. You don't realize that, have you? Have you realized
That's
that yet?
exactly
You
what
guys have
they've done.
adopted our
No one
arguments
is
for
against
voter ID for
ID
this?
here.
we like voter
For
ID.
deportations?
We literally are all in favor of voter ID.
Well,
Who the
hold on.
fuck are you
Really?
kidding?
To be
Yeah,
fair,
this
to be
is
You're,
like-
you're all.
No,
Can
no,
I get that
no,
on record?
no,
You guys are all in favor of voter ID. Can I get that on record?
I'm
Are you in
not-
favor of voter
Buckaroo
ID?
might not be. Buckaroo might not be, but the
Yeah,
rest of us
I'm-
are.
I
You're in favor
don't
of
have
voter
like the
ID.
strongest.
Yes, I'm okay with voter ID. I'm okay with
Okay, cool. All right. I just
requiring
wanna have
an
that on
ID
record.
card of some sort. Yeah,
Yeah,
to
man,
vote.
this is like some fucking like
Yes.
red team, blue team shit. I can believe stuff that isn't like sanctioned by the Democratic Party. I don't have like a chip in my brain from Joe Biden that says I can only believe
No,
things that Joe Biden lets me believe.
you represent Joe
I
Biden to
repres-
me, and I will treat you like you're Joe Biden.
I mean,
all right?
he did say that we let in all the undocumented immigrants last year. Like he,
Well, okay,
kind of
hold
said,
on.
you guys
hold
let
on.
in the undocumented
I
immigrants.
called him up. I told him where in the border was weak to sneak through. I'm like, okay,
From
homie,
Seattle.
I need my lawn done. Okay, I need you to sneak across at this point, at these coordinates. I need you to
Yeah,
get you in.
personally,
Even
do
right?
that.
Who's
I
gonna
owed
clean
you.
the toilets? Who's gonna clean the toilets? Right? Like no, but really, okay. Like I just want to do two things. One, Pentuple's absolutely right. Now I know y'all want to say he's fighting ghosts, but y'all are the representatives for the left, just like we're the representatives for the right today. We have
I'm
eaten
a
a lot.
liberal.
Sure.
I mean, I haven't made any wild accusations to you
I care
guys
what your
about
special-
positions you
the
hold. I
special-
actually
okay,
just
yeah,
wait
I'm
for
trying
you
to
to.
argue for
I just
you.
wait for you guys to
Let
make
me
claims,
go.
and then I discuss the claims that you've
Listen,
made
listen.
instead
Okay,
of
that's
making claims
fantastic.
for you.
Cool. Thank you, Buckaroo. Listen. This is the thing. This is the thing. One, I'm not saying you yourselves are making this. However, many on the left have made this claim, just like y'all try to
argue with them.
Hold on. It's okay. Let me just talk real quick. Then you can yell at me in a second. I promise. Listen. Listen.
I already said
A lot of people on the left have made this claim. Right? Just like y'all try to pin everything that Trump does and go, oh, hey, that's your boy. You're the MAGA guys. I get it. It's fine. It's team sports. Cool. Here's the thing, though. Right? One, whenever Pentuple makes the argument, hey, many on the left have argued against voter ID with this logic, and now y'all are adopting this as a talking point for immigration. That's a valid statement.
Okay,
Hold on, wait.
It's just real quick. It'll be quicker if you just let me do it, right? So
Sure.
the difference between these two things, right? And again, I'm in favor of voter ID, so just to nip that in the bud. But the difference between these two things is in one case, we're deciding who gets to vote, and in the other case, we're deciding who gets sent to the foreign torture prison forever.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Those are
Hey,
different.
That's
Those are not the same.
Zero room for
My
acceptable
argument
error.
Just because you come in midpoint
Zero
there, real
room
quick.
for acceptable
So
error.
here's
My
know, here's
argument
what our
here
elections are?
was just
Okay,
about.
so it's not quicker because
My argument here was just about
That was
due
a terrible
process.
argument.
So listen, here's the thing, though, right? Now
I think
back
that
to
was
the
all of our arguments.
back to the original
No, it's a bad
point.
argument because
God
it
damn it.
presumes
Back
that
to
there's
the
a larger
original
room
point.
for error with voting, which is not the case. We
To
don't
the
have a
original
larger room
point
for error,
that I was
especially
making.
with how close our elections are. There is no
Listen,
room for error
hold-
with that
first
election.
I mean,
of all,
I didn't
hold
make
on.
any relation to elections.
God damn it.
No, I was
First,
talking quick. I was talking quick.
so okay, listen. All right, first, all right, back to this. Now I've made this argument here. We just talked about the vote ID thing. We'll come back to that. So the argument was if Gibbs, the illegal alien, hola, Senor Hostin Heaps comes here, and I jump the fence, and the minute I land 3 feet down,
You ain't
boom,
jumping nothing, buddy. But go ahead.
I know, I'm crawling or rolling under it when I cut it with my wire cutters. All right. So when I roll under the fence, like a broken lucha libre, like, okay, cool. They're gonna go. Suddenly, I now get more rights than American citizen. Now let's say I even am an American citizen because I am. Let's say
More
American
rights?
citizen. Hold it. Shh. American citizen Gibbs rolls under, and they catch me. They go, hey, look, this guy. And then I got 10 other people that are illegal aliens behind me because I'm the coyote, and they fucking roll me out, and they go, oh, Gibbs, he's an American citizen. And I go, hey, I'm an American citizen. I need due process. Guess what? I would also probably be okay with that guy waiting in Mexico while we figured out his citizenship status, because guess what? He's a coyote. They're using real legal immigrants to get illegals here. This is a known problem, and y'all are going, haha, not a problem, big deal. And then when we say, let's deport them all, y'all go, well, this guy's a legal alien. Oh, no, he needs all these special things. Sorry, bro, you got caught bringing people in. You need to go too.
Who here is against deporting people who have been found and convicted of human trafficking? Who here is against that? Raise your hand.
Wait, against what?
Of human trafficking? You're against? Hold on.
Wait, against it. I'm sorry. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I thought
Just
you
be
said
really quick.
you're okay with that. My bad.
Charlie's pro.
24 hours.
Okay, I'm like, I had some more questions for you, Charlie. I'm like,
what's going on over there?
Yeah. Okay.
preferably, would not want human traffickers.
Human traffickers bad. If we can find, we find and are able to prove that you're human trafficking, you should be out. If we're able to find and prove that you're a gangbanger,
and if there was a correlation
pushing
between the rates
fentanyl,
of human
smuggling
trafficking
fentanyl
and the
into the
amount of
country,
illegals
you're
that
out.
gave sanctuary.
Get rid of them. But that's my contention here. You have to be able to prove it. And the fact that Trump and his administration are violating due process and attacking the whole concept of innocent until proven guilty, that is what I think is the strongest argument that Trump is a dictator. To bring it back to the subject at hand. Yeah.
It's a Supreme Court ruling that has said that it applies to non-citizens, that they have a due process right. And I understand that a lot of, apparently all the MAGA people in this chat think that only the judicial system should just be an advisory body and just...
All right, we'll just classify all illegal aliens as enemy combatants. We'll just do that. How's that work for you?
Well, you're arguing for quite, like the idea of giving trials
I'm
to every
arguing
person,
for what
even if
is
we know they're
existing.
here illegally.
Like under other Republican regimes. Like I'm arguing for like immigration court.
What do we do with someone we know is for certain here illegally?
Brother,
we have to go through this process. We know they're getting deported. They're here illegally.
Yes, you have to go through this process.
Because you have to do the...
Go through what process?
You have to show your work.
Okay,
the
you
process
think there's
of
no
law
no paperwork trail at all? Is that what you're arguing? There's no paperwork
because
trail?
I feel like you think that that's not going to start happening to citizens.
It all comes back to this.
You think that I'm not talking about deportations. I'm talking about...
because the answer is zero.
I'm talking about anything. Innocent until proven guilty is extremely important. I don't want...
Look, they have... No, their zero is right. They made zero good arguments today. They provided zero pushback into the things we've said. They have zero legs to stand on. So zero is the answer in this case. I agree.
But I will say,
is immigration court not due process?
Gibbs, if they have immigration court, I'm sure. It's
fine. Oh, okay, so all the ones
that they did it.
Yeah, it's fine.
Then that was the process.
My biggest issue is that there's no method to challenge the claims against you. Like, let's say Gibbs, you're the coyote, and by accident you fucking leave your ID in like Mexico. Oh no, right? You were crawling through this and fell out of your
ship my ass to Mexico.
Okay, do you think the police, if they arrest a citizen, that if that citizen doesn't have their ID,
okay,
they
people
have
are being
no idea
stupid.
figuring
Do you
out
know
who
what
they
due
are?
process is? Hold on, just real quick. I want to fact check you. Pet Temple, what is due process? You don't know what due process is, so how do you know it's being violated or not?
Well, you're talking about a trial.
Do you know what due process is? What is due process? Explain it. I can answer you.
Is due process only?
He doesn't know what due process is. We have people who have no idea what due process is, trying to argue that someone is having due process or not. This is insane.
Only about trials.
It's the principle that legal matters must be resolved fairly and in accordance with established rules.
Yeah.
When it comes to the context of the United States, what do we mean when we say due process? What is being referred to?
If you come here illegally,
the answer is still zero because this suggests that there's not checks. You're arguing, our system has no ability of making sure we don't deport illegals or that we don't deport citizens. Yet the answer is fucking zero.
I mean, you already read the definition of due process.
Your argument is
the point. The problem is,
in fact, by
the problem is if their due process is
already
revoked,
we've already met due process for many of these people. Because if you break the law and you're picked up and arrested and deported, that follows That follows what's established
That is
as
the due
legal
process,
precedent.
by the way.
It is the due
True.
I think
process.
the part,
Technically,
I
the
think a
judge
part of
said
the
that it's
problem
not.
Thank
is
you, Wick, for that easy dunk. I appreciate it.
not a
He's
part of
been
the
giving us
problem
late
that
alley-oops
they aren't
all night.
afforded the time
Alley-oop
necessary
all night.
to
Call
verify
him Chris
or
Paul.
is not the problem regarding the point of due process that they're not giving them the necessary time to verify or whatever the opposite of verify is, their citizenship. Like, is that not the whole issue of not being afforded due process and just being
When you say due
deported?
process, that's different than do we give
Well,
them
this
a
is
trial to litigate the question of their citizenship
well, no,
or not? That's
I
different.
I agree. That's why I
Hold
was
on.
saying. That's
No,
why I was
it's
asking a
not.
couple minutes ago. That's why I
No,
was
it's
asking a couple
not.
Yes,
minutes
it is.
ago. That's why I
Wick,
was
of
asking a
course it
couple
is.
minutes
Some
ago.
sort
Can I
of
finish?
What the
trial,
fuck?
some sort of
Wick,
ability.
moderator,
Hold on.
can I please
Dude,
finish
hold on.
my point?
He's just wrong on what due process is, but go ahead.
I just read it from Google.
Well,
what is your point?
This is
Can
why I
you
was
make a point
asking if
based
due
off of your
process
understanding
only
of due process?
applies.
I got the Black's
This
Law
is a part of
Dictionary.
why I was
can read from there.
asking.
Hold on.
This is
Do
a
you
part of
think
why
when
I was
I
asking
What
if
is your
due
point? The
process
answer
only
is
applies.
still zero. You're arguing our system
is a
has
part
no
of why-
capability of checking
Look.
citizenship, yet we have made zero
This
mistakes on
is
this
a
front.
part
Not
of
a single
why I was
citizen that you can point
asking
to.
if due process only applies to trials, because from my understanding, due process also applies to the detainment of people, right? Like, if people are detained and there is no answer as to whether they have or do not have the status of citizen, then if they are not afforded the due process necessary to like look into whether or not they are a citizen, then there are like, it's like Schrodinger's fucking citizen. You don't actually know the status of the people that are being deported, and because of that, that is the revocation of due process to these individuals.
I have the
I think it's really
Black's Law legal dictionary definition of due process is the conduct of legal proceedings according to established rules and principles for the protection and enforcement of private rights.
Within the context of the United States are what?
Let me finish. And I will tell you that if you tell me to read it. Including
What is the point you want to make with this?
Including
what is the point you're
the
making?
right to trial before a tribunal with the power to decide the case. All right.
Beautiful.
That's your technical. Now, there's furthermore,
more.
the words due process have a precise technical import and are only applicable to the process and proceedings of the courts of justice. There you go. That's the key part right there. So only with people that get those benefits.
What that means, just because I have a reading comprehension above a 5th grade level, so I can tell you what that means.
Confused.
What that means is that just because there is a process that is followed does not make it due process, which a lot of people in chat are arguing. That's fucking stupid, right? The process has to come in the context of the court system and the legal system which we have in the United States, specifically the 5th Amendment and the 14th
literally
Amendment.
A part of the legal system. They're like the arm of the legal system is the people who are actually going out and arresting people. That's why there's a difference between detainment and arresting in the first place, because there is some sort like how far does this concept of legal extend when you're talking about where it applies to whom it applies?
Wick, I'm curious to get your opinion on this. I'm reading this right now. Obama's administration deported over 3 million people, with a significant portion of these deportations occurring through expedited removal or other streamlined processes that did not involve a full judicial hearing.
So what they did under Obama, in case you didn't know, is they changed the definition of what deportation means, which means that they did it by turning away people at the border who had not yet come into this country, and they called it a deportation. That's how they get to the 3 million number, by the way. So, and second of all, to the extent that he did not follow due process, because don't get me started, Obama did a lot of things that were wrong, doesn't mean that you get to do things that are wrong too.
But nothing.
The ACLU, there were several other organizations at the time who had huge issues with what Obama was doing in regards to deportation. And I stand with what they were saying in those cases.
Right, but none of it was ultimately ruled unconstitutional. You agree with that?
How many got to the Supreme Court?
I don't know. But
then how do you know if they were ruled constitutional or not constitutional?
I'm saying the majority of 3 million people that were deported under Obama did not get a full judicial hearing. You're arguing that a full judicial hearing is part of the due process that is expected. So
only for citizens, according to the Black's Law.
No.
Process means the
Yes.
state has a burden to prove, aka a trial, but not limited to. They have proper justification before they take away your rights.
And this is what happened under
Dude, the
Obama.
Fifth Amendment
The
doesn't mean
process,
it's a
hold on.
trial.
This process typically involves an immigration officer determining deportability without
Where
the
at?
individual
When they
having
are in the country, or
opportunity to present
they're
their
still
case.
outside of the country?
When they're in the country, when they're in the United States.
Can you link me
This
this?
process typically involves an immigration officer determining deportability without the individual having the opportunity to present their case to a judge, thus bypassing traditional due process protections like a court hearing or legal representation.
Yes, that was unconstitutional.
I have something that I would like to say.
But it's been done.
Oh,
Okay, I
well,
have something-
great.
I have something
Epstein
that
did a
I
lot
wanna
of
say.
shit because Epstein
If-
did some stuff. Should we allow other people to do what Epstein did?
You're
Epstein's not in
you're
the
If
government.
only
Barack Obama
American
was able to do
citizens,
it.
if only American citizens, in your opinion, should have the right to due process, why the fuck would anyone come to America ever? Tourism would die. This would be an
that's
insane and dangerous country to be in.
That's not what we're saying.
Sure.
There's due process in.
I mean, no,
because they're
They
not
can still, like,
citizens. Tourists
civilly
are not
sue
citizens.
people.
Which
Right,
is
but you're
why
asking,
due
like, that this-
process
It's not if they're fucking
You're acting
deported.
like
supposed to
settling
apply
this issue on
to.
deportation would affect their like civil suit rights if they got assaulted or like something like that. That's not.
No,
like,
I mean, like, why would they come here at all if they have no due process?
Well, the problem is they
because
would
they
have
came
due
legally.
process.
You're
You're
right.
right.
You're
You're
absolutely
legally
right.
as
Why would they
Oh
come
my god!
illegally
And
if
that's
they're
the
gonna
point:
get
is that
deported?
we're detaining people who are here legally.
Deporting
They're
illegal is
deporting
an
them.
incentive.
No,
to come
no,
here.
they're here
They're here
legally
legally.
because you
They're
guys
not-
want to
they
play
were green
games that are
card
holders.
legal.
don't-
Here
That we know.
legally, like
No,
tourists,
they're all
like
green card
tourists.
holders. A lot of them were
If we
the CD1 app.
There was a
All
Welsh
right, hold
woman
on.
who was detained.
If we purposefully
Despite the
avoid
fact that she was here
looking
to travel.
into the status of citizenship of any individual, and then we deport them,
Okay.
then you can't
$5
just say, well,
here.
obviously we
I
have
do need to
no
read this,
proof
Money.
of any citizen. Can I finish?
Look.
Yeah,
soy
fucking
pill.
go. I
Okay.
stopped.
$5 from the soy pill. Okay, you can blame him.
Oh, hey, Soypil.
Would Pentuple's clandestine black wife vote for Obama for a third term?
Probably, yeah.
Okay,
Unfortunately.
weird. Give me more money, gang. Only one
Is it
super chat?
Beyonce?
That's crazy. Go ahead.
I would like to say, you know what's interesting when we come to like this is what's funny, and this is why like people one of the more reason why the Dems lost the election, I think, is because Dems like to do this dishonest thing, I think. And I don't think y'all specifically are the dishonest ones. I think it's overall where they do this thing where it's kind of like, oh, they're legal immigrants. And we put quotes around it. And it's really, and I'm gonna hate to use Star Wars again, but it's just too easy. It's Palpatine going over here. It's like, I will make them legal, right? Like that's what y'all did. Y'all went and got like this bullshit like app thing and said, oh, these are refugees, or oh, these are people. And then we made up rules like, oh, you could flee from Venezuela for gang violence, and that's a refugee now. And you changed all these different things, and really, it was just whatever. Then you simultaneously told us we couldn't stop the overflow of the border. When what happened? Trump gets in office, borders closed the next day by Abbott and Trump. We've stopped all it. We have record numbers of catches and not gotaways. How did we solve that overnight? Then they go, oh, we have people that were here illegally choosing to leave properly so they can come back the right way instead of getting deported because they want to come here the legal way and realize that's the way they should have done it in the first place. And then y'all want to go, Trump's a dictator because, oh, we're following law. But we didn't call Biden a dictator when he tried to send armed troops to stop Texas, who fought 2 separate wars against Mexico and beat them on their own, and go, hey, we're going to stop them from sending this invasion across the border. Go fuck yourselves, Texas. That was treason, but we didn't call him a dictator. We fought it in the courts. You know, it's crazy how y'all want to give us this double standard.
Hell yeah, Gibbs.
Yeah,
Just to be
fuck
clear,
yeah.
the court's
I mean, I
authorized
still think
Biden
we
to do
should
that,
fight
but-
Trump in the courts. I'm not me thinking he wants to be a dictator doesn't mean I think we should suddenly like put our arms up and just wait around and see what happens. Like,
Can we at least acknowledge that you guys have been very hyperbolic all night about how this is even working? You guys are suggesting that
What?
they're getting like rounded up. Nobody's
They
doing
are.
any oversight.
They're getting literally rounded up.
They're not, Wick. No, they're
And
not.
Tuple, you just live in an alternate reality. That's all.
No, I literally just look it up. There's a 7, and I
Well, there are
linked this
people who
actually.
are-
I linked
You're
it in the
citing
chat
fucking
and I linked it
Grok
in here
to me.
because
Hey,
you
are you
obviously
fucking
don't
kidding me? That's like
understand the
Wikipedia.
You're
process at
citing
all.
Grok?
That's embarrassing. I'm
Okay,
embarrassed on your behalf.
I didn't know Rob Noir was on my
There are
panel
people who
tonight.
are
Challenge it.
deported. I
Challenge
guess
the process outlined here, that they have identification, apprehension, a notice to appear, a detention or release, immigration court hearing, which doesn't require, if you are determined by the court to be here illegally based on the evidence provided by ICE, you can be deported. That is what we're talking about with due process. You're acting like, oh, hey, you're Mexican, get on the bus, and then the bus goes across the border, and that's what's happening. You are
They
being
are, though.
symbolic and
What they're
dishonest, and
doing,
you know
they are
it.
not
You
giving them
know
a
it.
trial. They are not giving them
You're
a
not
phone
giving them a
call.
trial because we
They're not
already
giving to a
have
lawyer.
established
There are people in a
they
foreign
are not
prison
here
right
legally.
now. There are people in a foreign prison right now who have no access to their lawyers. We have no ability to have any sort of pushback to the government when they claim
No,
that
they
they're
do.
not a citizen.
There are methods. There
There's
are routes
none.
to pushback.
The
actually.
gay
It's not due
barber.
process.
Literally.
It's not due
You can
process.
look it
Again,
up. You can
simply
research
because
that.
there is a
Back
process
then,
Okay,
does
we
not
can't
make
do
it
that.
qualify
The
for
answer
due
is
process.
zero, Wick.
There.
Then explain why the answer is zero.
My
If there's
beard.
no safeguards, why is the answer
There's
zero? Why can't
three.
you give me
There's a
one
gay
example?
barber,
No,
a dude with
no.
an autism tattoo. There were two separate people, by the
Green
way,
card
Charlie.
holders
You're a
and
little wrong with
citizens.
that.
I thought
There's
it
two
was
separate
one
people.
guy. That's
It's not
worse.
just
That's
one.
worse.
There's two
That's
separate
two.
Don't
people,
go
right?
post.
And
You guys
there's
know
a
you're
guy
being
who they
hyperbolic and
specifically said
dishonest.
don't deport to El
White dude.
Salvador, who they deported to El Salvador. And then J.D. Vance, the vice president of the United States, got on Twitter and started lying his ass off about it, right? Saying he was a convicted MS-13 member when he absolutely was
You've
not.
been dishonest this whole time. You have no credibility to even say that.
What are you
You've
talking
been
about?
making the claim that
I
we're
don't take
deporting
criticism
citizens
from
with
people I
zero
wouldn't take
evidence,
advice.
acknowledging that there's no evidence and still making the claim.
I am
because it's
simply
partisan.
saying that there is no way you can
fucking
know
dumb.
that no citizens have been sent to El
Because there
Salvador.
is
That's
a
just a
process.
statement of
You are
fact.
lying
That's
when
just
you suggest
true.
that they just put them on a bus and send
They
them
do.
over.
They
because
put them
they're
on a
Mexican.
bus. They
No,
send them
they
to a
don't,
deportation
Wick.
center.
No, they
Then they
don't.
ship them off to the airport. They put them
No,
on a
that's what they did
plane.
in Project
And they
Wetback
ship them to
in
El Salvador.
1956.
That's literally.
You
Yeah,
don't
which
know
was
anything
all-
about the process,
Yeah,
Wick.
that was also
This is
don't
why
know
we were
anything.
talking
You
about
want the
detainment
credibility as
versus
if you
arrest
work
in
in
the
Border
first
Patrol,
place.
but you know nothing about the process. And it
I
takes
know
a
everything
instant
about the
journalist.
process.
It
You're
takes
just
a
making
simple
shit
search
up.
and looking up
You're just
how the
making
process
things
works.
up.
How does ICE work? No,
Brother, your
you are
source is
making
Grok.
things
You have
up,
nothing
Wick,
to
and
stand
you
on.
have
You went on
nothing
Grok
to
and
do.
AI.
Gibbs has said you're giving us
It's embarrassing.
alley-oops to dunk on
There's
your dumb
gotta
ass
be-
over and over.
Holy shit, Pentuple, did your mother fucking drink in the womb? What is
Must
wrong with
be.
you? Why are you spurging out right now? Can you calm the fuck down a little bit, please?
Hey, I'm not the one who let in
You
80 million
guys are
illegals.
way
so why don't
too
you shut
close
the fuck
together
up?
for that shit.
Hey,
Okay. Just to bring it all back. I understand that evidently we are all living in different worlds and different realities even. But if Trump
I'm in
were
Buckaroo land.
if Trump were to be detaining and deporting without due process green card holders and other people who are here legally but not citizens, would that be a dictator thing to do, or you guys like that? You're like, yeah, that rocks, love it, just toss him out.
right?
Well, if that
is.
made Trump a dictator, then that would make Obama a dictator as well. So no.
True.
Well, I mean, hold on.
I'm not a fan of Obama.
Wait,
either.
hold on. No, I just saw this link you gave us. Pentuple, you gave us a link for what due process is supposed to happen, not what is happening.
Yeah, you're arguing that that's
These are
not
two
happening.
separate things. And yes, you gave the link of yes, what should happen. That's true.
Right.
Motherfucker,
right.
you're just retarded.
Is the answer
Let me-
zero, Wick? Is the answer still
Yeah, I
zero?
mean-
We don't
You want
know
to
what
single
the
say-
answer
What-
is.
If what you were saying was
He just
true,
gave
Wick,
me a
the
okay.
answer
This
would not
grok
be
that he.
zero.
I want to read it for here. I'm going
There's
to
no
show
way
it to you
for
guys.
us
This is
to
required
know.
to keep
Good
records,
day,
actually,
sir.
of
I'm going to
like-
show it to you. What he asked you.
I would
like-
like to say that the people that were deported were
can I-
both citizens
Why is
and
the
non-citizens
answer
at the same
zero?
exact time.
I would like to respond to what
Wick,
Charlie
why is the answer
mentioned.
zero?
They
If this
actually
system has
exist in a
no
quantum
checks for
state
citizenship,
of citizenry.
no checks, why is the answer zero?
Hold on. Let me
Just explain
respond
that to me. I feel
let me
like that's
just
basic
letting you.
logic.
I'm
No,
letting
hold
the
on.
people read.
Let me
Right.
respond.
I'm sure
let me-
you need some time to come up with some more bullshit because you
No,
don't
I'm
have
just-
any
I'm just
real
showing you
actual
what he
understanding
said.
of
Let
this.
me. Can I
You
respond
have
to
no
what Charlie?
actual understanding
made
of the
my point.
process
Let me
If
respond
you
to
know,
what
you
Charlie
know.
said.
At all,
Let
and
me-
you're talking
hold
like
on,
you
Pip.
do. You have
Pip,
no
let me-
credibility.
Hold on. Let me respond to what Charlie said. So, all right, this is an interesting point you made. All right, do we want legal aliens deported? Right. Here's my response to that.
No,
And
no,
this
no.
is-
Oh my God. Gibbs, please. I said
Yes.
people who are here Legally.
Right, legally.
People who are not American
Legally.
citizens
Right,
but are
right.
here
I understand.
legally. Okay,
Right,
that
yeah, I got
that
you,
was
I
the
got you.
question. Should they be okay?
I understand. I got
You
you.
started with illegal alien.
Oh, well,
Okay,
listen, my Texas accent comes in thick sometimes.
A little
legal,
too
it's okay.
excited
right,
there.
listen, so all right, we got
Okay.
listen.
No, sorry,
so
I didn't mean to
legal
condescend.
immigrants.
I was
All
just
right,
like, oh my
you're
god.
fine. You're
No,
fine.
girl, understand all you want.
Yeah. Listen. So here's my thing, right?
Oh.
So here's my response to what about the legal aliens, right? Okay, one. Here's is the issue is I had on my ranch personally, I had property destroyed. I've had cattle killed by illegal aliens, right? It's been a problem, not for just my ranch, my family's ranches. We've had all sorts of shit. And when I went and said, hey, this is a problem, we need help.
Why didn't you build a bigger fence? Sorry.
All right, like I went and complained about it. I bitched about it. I came on panels. I went and wrote my House representative people. We paid for ads, all sorts of shit. Right? We did this. We did all the process, and we got told, "Go fuck yourself. You're a landowner." Who
You
gives a
tried
shit about you?" Hold
militarizing
on,
the border of your farm?
Please,
Oh.
just let me finish real quick. All right. And so when I hear legal aliens, yeah, it's sad, but I look at it like this: say you're the wife of I don't know a Dubai prince, and you commit a crime. Right? They have the diplomatic immunity, right? But you can still be told that they have to leave the country, right? That's somebody that's here a legal alien, right? So there's already a precedent in my mind that if you're here legally, that your status here as a legal alien can be revoked. And that's why we have the citizenship process, so that once you become a citizen, then you have all these extra protections. There are more protections for a legal alien, sure. I think there should be some sort of due process. However, if a few legal aliens get rounded up with the millions and millions of illegals, and then we have to go through that process later, I'm okay with that because nobody gave two fucks about what was happening down here until Abbott started shipping these people all over the U.S. And then when y'all have the audacity to go, oh, high and mighty, look down on the dumb Texans, they over here are sick of all these illegals. What about the legal aliens? Well, y'all didn't care about the citizens here that were dealing with this bullshit for years.
$5.
And that's my answer to that.
$5 from AK Batozai. I always get your name wrong. Thank you for the $5. Says Wick, how does your due process argument reconcile if there's a group of foreign invaders with criminal intent without submitting to authorities? I think that if you can prove that people are coming in here with criminal intent, then you should be able to deport them, but you have to prove it. That's all I'm asking for. There's your answer. So $10 from Ben Raleigh. Thank you for the money. Keep giving me more. The tariffs are hurting us all. I know, right? We're all going to be poorer, so you got to really fill my coffers. $10 from Ben Riley says, what is the right-wing prescription for eliminating false negatives and false positives and removing undocumented immigrants? What is their plan to improve the immigration process to meet demand?
Yeah, I actually genuinely wanted to ask Pentuple that earlier, because he was saying that, there's no mistakes that's been made, but it's been 3 months, and obviously every single process has mistakes which are made. So why shouldn't you be able to argue the charges against you and basically just say, hey, look, this is an incorrect thing. Please just go to my house and fucking get my birth certificate, and we'll have a process and make sure.
I think what we're talking about is that the court is able to do this without an entire trial, without providing an attorney to every single person who claims that they're here. If this is how we're going to do it, everyone's just going to claim they're here legally. If the court can determine that you're not here legally, we don't have to go through a whole trial. We don't have to assign an attorney. That's what we're talking about.
How would the court prove
We're
that?
not saying.
To be clear, that is a part. Is that not a part of due process?
Lack of any evidence that you're a citizen, or proof that you're a foreign citizen. Maybe we have records of deportation. We have fingerprinted you before. We know that you're a Mexican national. We've deported you before, and you're not here legally, and we know that, and the court knows that. And we don't have to give you an attorney on the taxpayer dime. We don't have to give you this whole fun trial that's going to take a month or however long it's going to take. This is a process that can be taken, because determining whether somebody is a citizen is not actually as hard as you guys want to act like it is.
Well, it's not that
you can lie about the process, but until we deport a citizen, the answer is 0. There are checks for this.
Until we deport a citizen that you know of, that we know of.
When Obama was doing the same
we would
exact
know. I
thing,
think
not
Wick
a
will be the
single
first
one of
to
you had
tell
a
me
problem with it.
Obama.
I
I literally had an issue with it. Why do you always make arguments nobody's making?
I'm sure. You were roaring about Obama deporting people, I'm sure.
I was going through puberty. I wasn't thinking about any of that.
Dumb? Are you genuinely an idiot? Stop bringing up shit nobody's saying. Stop arguing against shit nobody's saying. Actually make a real fucking point, or keep your mouth shut like you've been doing for most of the debate.
Ad hominem.
Brother, you're doing a textbook whataboutism when you bring up Obama. Shut
Ad
your fucking mouth.
hominem, bitch, what did you just say about my position on Obama?
That's like fucking debate bro 101.
I'm outlining the blatant double standard that you guys have.
policy.
because
Actually, I think you guys are saying things that I don't. Could you show me the source? I'm sorry, Wikipedia.
shit.
Oh my gosh! Shut the fuck
Yeah,
up.
$10.
Honestly.
this shit on it.
Just real quick.
I think
Just real quick.
Obama's a war criminal.
$10 from Ben Riley. Just saying.
Also, I said,
$10
I've
from
said
Ben
the
Riley.
great supporter and
$10.
supporter
10.
multiple
Oh my
times
God!
this
Don't get in the way of my
conversation.
money. $10 from Ben Riley. Gibbs, could you define
already got
epistemic humility? It's in the Bible. Jesus mentioned it. Thoughts on, quote, better to let 10 criminals go free than convict an innocent man, unquote, question mark.
Ooh.
Yeah,
That's
you
social-
know,
that
yeah,
was
let me
the great
answer
Benjamin
to
Franklin.
answer that real quick. To answer that real quick, no, but I can define
Hero
narcissism
of
and
the
my
Republic.
photos next to it.
Oh god.
Yeah, unfortunately, I respect my ancestors, and I believe that, fucking what Benjamin Franklin said when he said, you know what? It's better to let 1,000 guilty people, not 1,000, 100 guilty people go free. 1,000, a million. 100 guilty people go free if it means that we don't convict an innocent person. That was uttered by Ben Franklin and is a part of the founding philosophy of this country. I fucking respect that.
Ben
man.
Franklin would have been.
I'm so sorry
open
that you do
borders.
not respect the fucking republic and all the people who came before you and built up this great country. But
Bro.
I give a shit about it.
I respect the Republic of
Anti-American.
Texas.
It's just
I mean-
crazy to me. Like in any other instance, the government, you would all be super skeptical. Like the government can't do that. Look at USA. Look at all these other cases where the government's fucking up and it's corrupt as shit. But in this one instance, the government,
They're like,
we should
ICE?
trust them
Oh, yeah.
entirely.
Can we stop
It's
pretending
totally
like where
okay
we're
what they're
talking
doing.
about
There's
is,
no
like, the
corruption.
beginning of
There's
the
no
problem?
mistakes.
We're-
The government is perfect in this. ICE got me.
If that were to be happening, would you feel that is dictatory for people who are here legally to be detained and deported without due process? Admiral Gibbs said yes, or he said no. I don't know. Actually, what was your answer? You like it?
Then
Oh, yeah,
maybe.
it's a maybe.
citizens.
It's a maybe. Right. I get like the concern. Like I'm not saying it's not a valid concern. Right. The issue that I'm having is this idea that he's coming in wholesale, like, and just picking up all the illegal aliens or whatever. What it seems like is there's a few incidences where there was maybe a potential mistake, or someone was wrapped up in like a raid that maybe was like here legally that didn't have it or whatever. And these are outlier incidents, and we're making mountains out of molehills. Now, if he goes all tomorrow and it's like, all right, everybody that's from, I don't know, Saudi Arabia, they're gone, or we're putting them in a camp, then yeah, I would say that's dictatorial. But if he's like, okay, we're at war with Iran tomorrow, if you're an Iranian guest in our country,
Brother.
I'm revoking your license to stay. Like, I think that's totally different.
What
He's making.
What if he was like, I heard this guy was protesting something that I support, and I know he has a visa, so I think he should be deported. What about then?
Well, okay, I think we can look at these as a case-by-case example. I think you're talking about what's his name, Muhammad Khalil or whatever.
Yeah, we're
His-
deporting Muhammad.
Yeah, I mean,
Khalil.
so,
100% we're deporting that guy.
Yeah,
Are you
so-
kidding?
so, yeah,
That's
if
like
he-
the first guy to deport.
Why? We're not Israel. We are the United States.
You're not a
He's
citizen.
not allowed
You
to
don't
have
give
a
a
fucking
shit about
opinion
our
on
country.
Israel.
Try to
He's
I
not.
don't wanna be
Let's
held to
hold
Israel. I
on,
wanna be-
just real quick. Let's move off the immigrant for a moment and look at what Trump is doing to the
Yeah, fuck
actual
Muhammad
citizens of
Khalil.
this country. Perkins Coie, okay? Perkins Coie, a law firm which has opposed President Trump, he is using executive orders to go after lawyers who fight him in court. We have the ACLU of DC, the Cato Institute, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, the Foundation for Individual Rights of Expression, the Institute for Justice, the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University, the National Coalition Against Censorship, the Reports Committee for the Freedom of Press, the Rutherford Institute, the Society for the Rule of Law Institute, all writing an amicus brief opposing his unjust, dictatorial targeting of law firms who oppose him. That is dictatorship.
We love big law firms owned by billionaires. We love them.
No, hold on. Law firms, right, should be able to sue the
anything
government
they
or
want.
represent people
Yes.
who oppose the government without the
They
threat
should
of the
even be able to
government coming
infringe on
after
the
them
president's
criminally with
duties.
executive orders.
Agreed.
My biggest
We should be
problem with
able
the
to obstruct
argument
the president.
Temple, is that you essentially, like, every single time we say, hey, look, this is an unconstitutional thing, you're like, let's just pick like the most unsympathetic possible way to frame this and then say that therefore they don't have any due process. Like, you don't think like a law firm has the right to due process? Like that they don't have the right to like fucking show up in court? Like,
Well,
what?
a
Like,
firm?
that's all.
What do
Yeah,
you think
like-
was taken by Trump? What did Trump take from Perkins Coie? What happened there?
Could
What
you
did he
remind me,
take away?
because like you're the one.
Did he
who
take away their license to practice law? What did he take away?
If I recall correctly, but Wick, please correct me.
He took away access that they had to federal government records, right? They had
If I recall correctly, and then also
he took away
coerced them
security
into
clearances from
providing
them.
$40 million of free legal services.
So
to Trump.
if I start a law firm, should I be entitled to a security clearance?
The
Because I'm a law
government
firm,
shouldn't
right?
be able to because you
Wait,
oppose
hold
it and take it away.
on. Wait, I have a law firm. Can I have the security clearance? I demand it. I'm a big law firm now.
Hold
I have
on.
a bunch of
It's not
money.
that they're
Well, I
not
guess that
giving
fucking
them
depends.
it. They are.
They're taking it away.
They're taking it away.
They're entitled to it
It's
now.
all situational. I don't know why.
Because-
You're
It's really
entitled to
dumb.
it now
The-
that they've had it. Once you get it, you are now entitled
Hold
to
on.
it. You get that's my.
Do you think that
security
the
clearance. You
government
can't
can take away stuff from you because of your speech?
I think they can take away your
clearance?
security clearance. Yeah.
Security clearance is absolutely
Not for your
Again,
viewpoint
I
expression.
don't think-
That's just not true. As
wait,
probably the only person who has actually held a
Again,
top
I
secret
don't
security
think-
clearance,
Wait.
right? Who actually has gone through the process, who actually knows what they're
And
fucking
you don't
talking
think that
about.
could
in
ever
this,
be taken
right?
away from you?
Okay,
Ever?
they can take it away from you, but
security
not
clearance-
because you speak out against the government. They
There's
can't do
nothing
that.
you could say on
no.
stream that you think would get your security clearance taken away?
If I have
Nothing
security
that
clearance-
wouldn't also violate the First Amendment.
If
Oh,
I
wait,
have,
okay. So what if you?
Or
what if
also
you
my
shared something that you
contract
knew from
of
your top secret
my
clearance?
contract of like if I'm telling the top secret.
The
stuff,
point is, you're
obviously.
not. You don't get this due process. This isn't like an entitlement that you have the security clearance when you're a law firm.
if I have security clearance and I go out and publicly say, "Hey, I'm fucking around with those guys at Al Qaeda. I kind of like what they're doing." Is that
what Perkins
maybe
Coie
a-
did?
Is that what happens?
No, it's not.
To be
we
clear,
can
this is-
get into what Perkins Coie did.
Hold
We
on,
can
hold
get
on,
into
hold
what
on.
This
Perkins
is
Coie
why
did.
his behaviors are so suspicious.
No. But can
Okay,
your national
Perkins
security
Coie is the
clearance be
Russia
revoked?
law firm
In
that
certain
did the whole
conditions,
Russia.
yes, but not in the one that. Again, what did Perkins Coie do that got
Your
their security?
claim, your
clearance
claim
taken
was
away?
that you cannot be revoked the national security
I'm correcting
clearance
it. I'm
because of the
correcting it. I'm
the first
correcting it.
speech,
I'm
First
correcting
Amendment.
it. I'm correcting it. I'm correcting it.
Okay,
If they can
okay.
demonstrate, like they can look in, they can revoke your security clearance. But my claim here is that the reason they're revoking these people's security clearance is because they opposed them in court, and that is dictatorship.
I mean, to be
You
fair, that is kind of
disagree?
concerning.
I mean,
I mean,
Yes, I disagree.
this is the point. This is the point of why people are saying he seems like he wants to be a
Dictatorship
dictator.
is
Not
saying,
because-
hey, go figure out how
not
to turn this
because this
misdemeanor
law-
into a felony so we can charge the former president and hopefully
Not
he won't
because
be
these
electable after
lawyers-
that. That's
Not because of this
dictatorship.
big
That's
law firm allegedly has
dictatory.
has the
Throw the
right
book at
to
him.
has the right to any of this information, but because a lot of his behaviors, when you look at all of them to get together, it seems a lot more like he's leaning towards silencing his opponents than he is just, being of the people and representing the people and, actually respecting the nature of our governmental system.
heard it here first from Brittany Grimer, ladies and gentlemen.
What does that even mean? But fair enough.
I don't know who that is. I don't care
Okay.
who that is.
We
My
are
point
running
is
at the
that,
2-hour mark.
It's just your hey, look. To be fair, it's just your celebrity lookalike. I don't think it's really
Okay.
offensive. It's just like
Yeah,
a celebrity.
but yeah,
Oh, okay.
again,
I would
Yeah,
be
the
clearly.
idea. I just
Pretty
look.
good.
I'm.
What
You
is
know what?
WNBA
I'm.
WWE
We're
players the whole time.
running out of time, so we are going to go closings. But before we go to closings, right? Because I don't want to keep everyone here too long. Right? I know some of you are super tired. Some of you need to have places to go. I have things to do tonight. But if you've enjoyed this content, gang, if
She's
you've
cute.
liked-
You should call me that again. Hell yeah, I am
I will,
Brittany
Brittany.
Griner.
Oh, I
You're
was like,
right. Oh my gosh. I
fair
can't
enough.
believe you just called me that.
If you
talented
like the
athlete?
content, if you
Tall
like,
woman? Oh my gosh, tan skin? I hate it.
if you
Sorry,
like,
I had to.
if you
High
like,
trade value too. We gave up Victor Orban for you.
The biggest trade in history, the Merchant of Death. That's an accomplishment. Big fan.
Yeah, you might have remembered that, Big Papa. You remember in the Russian basket?
Okay, great.
Mm,
If you like the content,
Now I know.
if mute you, okay. If you like the content, if you enjoyed this kind of conversation, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'm gonna give each of these wonderful, lovely individuals a chance to shout themselves out, give closing thoughts, give closing statements, and we'll get to it. Next week, we're going to have on Monday a show about tariffs and the tariffs that Trump has put out. On Wednesday, we're probably going to have call-ins, and it's going to be a short week next week because I might have a big announcement coming up for the 11th. It's not in stone yet, but it's pretty close, so stay tuned for that. More WIC content coming out. But if I may, for my closing statement here, I will simply say this. that Trump is engaging in flagrant violations of the rule of law. They are ignoring the Constitution. They are targeting lawyers for their free speech. They're targeting immigrants for their free speech. They're violating and shredding the concept of innocent proven guilty. They have, and not one, not two, but 3 cases that we know of so far, right, deported people incorrectly to a foreign torture camp, okay, where their lawyers cannot get them back. They cannot get them back, and the government is doing nothing to correct their mistakes. So that's my statement. We're going to start with New York Shade, and then we're going to let Shenandoah have the last word, and that's the way we're going to go. New York Shade?
Yeah, look, we spent 2 hours here debating if Trump is a dictator, and definitively nobody's been able to provide any evidence that isn't already present in historical context. It's all been done before. Basically, it's amounted to, I don't like what he did over there. I don't like what he did over there. And the accumulation of this must all mean that he's somehow a dictator. It's all bullshit. It's all course correcting for a terrible 4 years under Biden, which was definitionally more authoritarian. And it's all vibes, right? They're just upset. They're bad losers. And the only thing that they have to fall back on is Trump is a dictator, instead of actually offering solutions to the American people that they can sell so they actually can try and win an election here on out.
Is what you're saying?
Where can people?
Sorry,
Hold on, it's closing. It's closing. Where can people find you?
I know. That was a joke. I'm sorry. New York Shade.
Where can people find you?
Twitter and YouTube.
Okay, check them out, gang. I have links to all these individuals in my YouTube channel. Check them out. Pentuple, go ahead.
He's muted.
Wonderful.
We can't hear you.
Brilliant.
I'm liking
Sorry, I
this
muted
one.
on here. I'm the head of MAGA headquarters, Pentuple TV on Twitch, and I'm also on X, but I'm not very serious over there. So Twitch is where everything's at, and baseball's coming back, and Trump's not a dictator, obviously. So that, duh.
Check them out, gang. Gibbs, go ahead.
So we learned a lot of things today. Make sure that if you buy any of Charlie's knitting, that doesn't say, it says it's humanely resources. We got to watch out because she's probably not the only one knitting. The rest of us, I think we talked about a lot of things. I also want to say, I know everybody thinks when Gibbs comes on a panel, I'm going to start screaming about immigration. But this is Wick's fault this time, not mine. I'm innocent.
My fault.
So, and the reason why he did that is because I feel like he pivoted because he knew Gibbs was right about we were going to discuss the legal theory about how to get Trump reelected. And I just want to say, just like Trump was always right, we're going to have new editions of this hat coming out, and it's going to be Gibbs is right about everything soon, I think. I'm pretty excited. So if you like all the things I'm going to say, we're having a panel here. I think some of the people here are going to be on it in about 30 minutes, talking about the Iran problem and leftist terrorism. It's going to be exciting stuff. Come check it out. You can find me everywhere as Admiral Gibbs on all platforms.
Check them out, gang. Thank you for being here. Buckaroo, go ahead.
I don't think Trump is a dictator yet, but boy, he sure does want to be. I think he would be besties with Mussolini if he could, although he would probably never take off his shirt. Not masculine enough. I think New York Shade is wrong. I think Gibbs is wrong. I think Pentuple is wrong. I think all the people on my side are right. I think Trump is a bitch who wants to be a dictator. And I'm Big Papa Buckaroo. You can find me on Twitter and YouTube. And I'm always right. I can't play basketball. I'm sorry, Brittany Griner.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate you. Check her out, gang. Charlie, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Enemy Charlie. I'm primarily on Twitch, rarely on any other platform. I hate to be online. I had fun. Thank you for having me. I'm so tired. I feel delirious right now. But I had a blast. I think Trump is it was a horrible dream. No, a very fun nightmare. I do think Trump is agreeing with Buckaroo here. Wants to be a dictator. I think we're in danger of seeing that happen. But I don't know. I have a feeling the tariffs might kill that. So we'll see. But yeah, thank you for having me, Wick. It was a blast.
Thank you.
Sorry I was late.
Fine. No, it's fine. Hope you get rest. Check her out, gang. Next up, last but certainly not least, Shenandoah. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Chairman Shenandoah, and I don't want any of you to follow me. I do stream on Twitch TV, but this debate gave me like fucking kidney stones, and I'm just like, I I did like 4 fucking pages of preparation, man, and like we got stuck on immigration for like an hour and a half, and it's like, God fucking damn it. I was up at like 8 a.m. fucking researching this shit. I was getting like fucking Supreme Court cases and shit.
Always
And then we just couldn't get off due process. It fucking killed me. But even though it was like a pleasurable suffering, it was kind of like BDSM. So I appreciate being on, and that you have me here, and I'd love to come on again. And
We'd love to torture you anytime, buddy. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Man, a taste over there. Man, a
Okay.
taste, seems like.
Check him out, gang. All the links in the description. Thank you again. We will. I hope I don't see you tomorrow. We will if something goes terribly wrong. But we'll see you Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Check us out. Wait, bye everyone. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.